The heat came up from the sand like a living thing. It crawled over the stones of the Red Keep and into the spaces between armor plates, into the folds of silk, into mouths held shut too long. The yard had the hush of a sept before confession. Even men who had cheered at tourneys held their tongues, as if they feared to wake something sleeping beneath the castle. Oberyn Nymeros Martell tasted grit on his teeth and smiled anyway. He had worn brighter colors in brighter places, when the world was made of wine and wagers and women with laughing eyes. Today he dressed for a funeral that would not be his. The scarlet clung to him as if it knew its work. Bold against the pale sand, a splash of blood set deliberately before a crowd. Across from him, Ser Gregor Clegane did not bother with pretense. The mountain was a moving wall of iron. Even the horse he had ridden in on had looked too small beneath him, trembling as if it understood how easily it might become meat. Up close, the plate was scarred and battered, the joints black with old sweat and newer oil. His helm hid his face, but it could not hide what he was. Violence given height and weight and permission. Oberyn angled his spear and watched the point's shadow tremble on the ground. He had poisoned the tip with something that would take the life from a man in minutes, if it found blood. It would not take minutes today. He had promised himself that. He had promised Dorne. Above, Tyrion Lannister's chains caught the sun when he shifted. The dwarf's eyes were the only ones in the crowd that looked neither away nor down. There was a sharpness to him that Oberyn recognized. The look of a man who has learned to make weapons of words because the gods gave him no other steel. The canopy fluttered. Queen Cersei Lannister's face was a hard mask of beauty and hate. Lord Tywin Lannister sat like stone carved into the shape of authority, hands folded, eyes pale and cold. If he felt the heat, he did not show it. If he felt fear, it was buried with everything else that might have made him mortal. Oberyn raised his spear in salute, toward the canopy, toward Tywin, toward the lie that called this justice. Then he turned the salute into motion, and the spear came alive. The mountain charged. No feint, no testing, only the certainty that his mass would crush anything in its path. Oberyn slid aside with the grace of a dancer who knows exactly where the floor will catch him. His spear kissed the mountain's greave and skipped, leaving a bright line where steel scraped steel. Laughter rose from somewhere, nervous, quickly strangled. Oberyn circled. The sand gave beneath his feet, shifting treacherously. He did not fight the ground. He used it, letting the instability carry him into angles no armored knight wanted to turn toward. His spear's reach was a promise. The mountain's sword was a threat with a shadow. They met again, steel ringing. The mountain's blade cut the air where Oberyn's ribs had been a heartbeat before. Oberyn's spear darted, not to kill, but to teach. Tap against a knee, scrape along a vambrace, sting at the armpit seam. Each touch was a reminder. There are places even the mountain is soft. The crowd breathed with the rhythm of their steps. Gregor's patience, if he had ever owned such a thing, burned away. He swung harder. The blade hammered down. Oberyn leapt back, sand exploding under his heel. He felt the wind of it, felt the heat of metal passing close enough to shave the air. He thought of Elia, not as a symbol, not as a corpse behind closed doors, but as she had been when she was alive. The curve of her smile when he told a filthy joke in the water gardens. The way she pressed her hand to her belly and laughed softly when her children kicked. He remembered her kindness. He remembered how kindness had not saved her. He did not let the memory loosen his grip. The mountain lunged. Oberyn came in close, too close for a greatsword to sing. His spear but slammed into Gregor's breastplate with a hollow clang. He pivoted and struck low. The point found a seam behind the knee. Just enough. Not deep. A kiss of venom. A whisper of hurt. Gregor stumbled. Oberyn did not gloat. He did not back away to let the crowd see him smiling. He moved like a man finishing work before the weather turns. His spear flashed again, up under the arm where the plates met, where leather and mail tried to pretend they were as good as steel. The tip slid in. Blood dark and sudden ran down the mountain's side. The great helm turned toward him slowly, as if the man inside could not believe it. Gregor roared. Not words, only sound, raw and animal. He swung the sword one-handed now, the other arm twitching as pain and poison argued with muscle. Oberyn slid, ducked, stepped inside the arc and drove the spear again, into the hollow at the throat, not deep enough to pierce the gorget, but deep enough to find flesh where the helm's rim met skin. A thin line of blood appeared. It widened. The mountain's sword dropped. For a moment the yard was so quiet Oberyn could hear the iron links of Tyrion's chain scrape stone. Gregor Clegane took a step toward him, then another. His hands lifted as if to seize the spear and break it. He looked like a man trying to climb out of the sea with armor dragging him down. Oberyn's spear point hovered at Gregor's throat. In another life, in the life that had ended in King's Landing years ago, Oberyn would have asked his questions. He would have forced the words out one by one and watched them choke on blood. He would have demanded the name that mattered, demanded it loudly enough that Tywin Lannister would have to hear it. That life had taught him a lesson. A man can die while he is still speaking, and the world will not change because he died bravely. So Oberyn made a different choice. He drove the spear through the gap beneath the mountain's jaw with all the strength in his body. The point punched up into the skull.
Gregorza.
NDS spasmed. His body shuddered, monstrous and suddenly uncertain, as if even it did not know how to fall. When the mountain hit the sand, it shook dust up in a ring. His great helm rolled to one side and lay there like a discarded pot. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the yard erupted. Not with cheers, not with joy, but with shock. Sound came back in pieces. A woman's strangled cry, a man's curse, the clatter of someone dropping a goblet. Oberyn withdrew his spear and stood over the corpse as it twitched, the poison finishing what steel had begun. He turned his head and looked up at the canopy. Queen Cersei Lannister's mouth was open, not in rage yet, but in something close to disbelief. Lord Tywin Lannister's expression did not change. That was almost worse. Oberyn raised his spear again, this time pointing it not at the dead, but toward the living. "My Prince of Dorne," someone called, voice thin. "The gods have judged." "The gods?" Oberyn repeated softly, and felt laughter trying to rise. He swallowed it. He would not give them that either. He heard Tyrion Lannister's chain rattle as the dwarf leaned forward, eyes bright in his bruised face. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, white cloak stained with sweat at the throat, stepped out with a stiffness that tried to look like authority. "The trial is decided. Tyrion Lannister is acquitted of the charge of regicide." The words fell into the yard like stones into a well. Somewhere, someone began to clap. It died almost immediately, smothered by fear of who might be watching. Oberyn did not take his eyes from Tywin as the announcement echoed. "You have heard," Oberyn said, voice carrying without effort. He did not shout. He did not need to. "All of you have heard." He did not name Elia. He did not name Tywin. Not here. Not yet. There were other ways to cut a lion than by screaming at it in its own den. He turned from the corpse and walked across the sand as if it belonged to him. The heat rose to meet his boots. The crowd parted without meaning to, instinct pushing men aside as if they feared the poison might leap from him. Above, Tyrion watched him with something that might have been gratitude or might have been calculation. In King's Landing, even gratitude was a kind of math. Oberyn went beneath the shade of the canopy long enough for Tywin to smell the venom on him. "My lord," Oberyn said, bowing just enough to be polite and no more. "It seems the day has not gone as you wished." Tywin's eyes were chips of ice. "The gods speak in many voices, and sometimes," Oberyn replied, "they speak through a spear." Cersei made a sound like a wounded animal. "You?" she began, but Tywin lifted a finger and she choked on the rest. Oberyn smiled for her alone, quick and sharp. Then he turned and walked away before anyone remembered they were allowed to stop him. Behind him, the corpse of Ser Gregor Clegane lay in the sand, and the red keep stones drank the day's heat as if they were thirsty for more. The air in the black cells was cooler, but it held its own kind of rot. It smelled of damp stone, old piss, and secrets that had been screamed into the dark until they turned hoarse and then quiet. Tyrion Lannister stood in the corridor with chains still on his wrists, though the lock had been changed. That was how King's Landing offered mercy. With a new chain, a cleaner collar. "Acquitted," he said, voice low. "That is the word, is it? It sounds like freedom." "It sounds like," Oberyn Nymeros Martell replied. "A man admitting he was wrong. That is rarer than dragons." He had not brought his spear down here. In these tunnels, steel meant little. Keys meant everything. Oberyn had come with only a cloak and a smile and the kind of confidence that made guards look away because meeting his eyes felt like a mistake. Tyrion's gaze slid over him like a knife-testing cloth. "You killed Ser Gregor." "I killed a monster in armor," Oberyn said. "The distinction matters to me. And to your sister." Tyrion's mouth twisted. "If you loved her." Oberyn felt the name Elia stir behind his ribs. He kept his face still. "Love does not change what was done." A torch sputtered. Shadows jumped on the walls, turning the iron doors into teeth. From the end of the corridor, a footstep echoed, measured, purposeful. Ser Jaime Lannister emerged from the dim with the white cloak hanging from his shoulders like a flag that had forgotten what it meant. His golden hand caught torchlight and threw it back. "I wondered when you'd come," Jaime said to Oberyn, but his eyes flicked to Tyrion as if checking that he was still there, still alive, still real. "I find I prefer to visit the living," Oberyn replied. "It's more interesting." Jaime's jaw tightened. "You should not be here." Oberyn gave him a look of mock surprise. "In the Red Keep, after giving the crown such a gift? I thought hospitality was a Lannister virtue." Jaime's laugh was short and humorless. "You've won something today, Prince Oberyn. Don't mistake it for safety." Tyrion shifted, chains clinking. "Is that a threat from the Lord Commander? Or simply brotherly concern?" Jaime ignored him. His gaze stayed on Oberyn. "My father does not like to lose." Oberyn's smile softened, just a fraction. "And I do not like to be cheated." The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Somewhere deeper in the cells, a prisoner moaned in his sleep, soundless words turning in his throat. Jaime leaned closer, his voice dropping. "The trial is done. The court will say the gods have spoken. My sister will say you used poison. My father will say whatever he must to keep the realm from tearing. None of that changes the truth. You put a knife to House Lannister in front of all the realm." "I put a spear," Oberyn corrected. "A knife would be rude." Jaime's eyes went hard. "If you think you can walk out of King's Landing untouched, you do not know my father." Oberyn held his gaze without blinking. "If you think I came here without knowing your father, you do not know me." Tyrion made a small sound, somewhere between a cough and a chuckle. "This is delightful, truly." Two great men warning each other about a third. A guard approached with a ring of keys, stopping at Jaime's gesture. His eyes avoided Oberyn's, as if he feared catching something. Jaime took a key, turned it in Tyrion's shackle, and the iron sprang loose with a snap that sounded like bone. Tyrion rubbed his wrists, flexing fingers that had been numb. "So I am free." "You are released," Jaime said. "Do not confuse the two." Tyrion's smile was sharp. "I learned long ago not to confuse anything in this family." Jaime's gaze flickered, and something moved behind his eyes. Regret, anger, exhaustion. "You will leave the castle. You will go to your chambers. You will stay there until my father decides what to do with you." "And if my father decides to do something that involves a rope?" Tyrion asked lightly. Jaime's mouth tightened. "Then pray the gods are still listening." Oberyn watched the exchange as if watching a game he had already learned to win. "Your father will not hang him now," he said. "Not after today. Not with half the court whispering and the other half pretending not to hear." Jaime's eyes narrowed. "You think you've protected him?" "I think," Oberyn said, "I have bought him time. Time is all any of us ever buy." Tyrion leaned against the wall, suddenly weary. The bravado slid off him for a moment, revealing the bruised man beneath. Why? He asked, not to Jaime, to Oberyn. Why champion me? Oberyn could have given him a pretty answer. He could have spoken of justice, of honor, of the gods. He could have made Tyrion feel like a rescued child. Instead, he gave him the truth that mattered. Because your sister would have seen you dead, Oberyn said softly. Because your father would have used your death like a stone in a wall, and the wall would have been built on my sister's bones. And because, Tyrion Lannister, you are clever. Tyrion's eyes sharpened again. Ah! Oberyn stepped closer, voice quiet enough that even Jaime's keen ears would have to strain. Clever men survive by knowing what other men want. Tell me what your father wants. Jaime bristled. This is not. Oberyn raised a hand, not looking at him. He wants control, Tyrion said, watching Oberyn carefully. He wants the realm to stop shaking. He wants my sister's rage to be satisfied without costing him anything. He wants you, his gaze flicked to Oberyn, to go back to Dorne and stop poking at old wounds. And what will he do to get it? Oberyn asked. Tyrion hesitated, then smiled without humor. Whatever he must. Oberyn nodded as if he'd expected nothing else. Then I must also do whatever I must. Jaime's voice cut in hard. Leave. Oberyn turned, finally meeting Jaime's eyes. I intend to. That is why I came down here. He moved past Jaime toward the stairs, cloak whispering over stone. The base of the steps he paused, glancing back at Tyrion. Do you know, Oberyn said, what men in Essos call your house? Tyrion's brow furrowed. Lions. They call you lions, Oberyn agreed, but they also call you gold. Tyrion's smile returned, thin as wire. And what do they call you? Oberyn's grin widened. They call me the Red Viper, because men believe they can predict venom. They cannot. He climbed the steps 2 at a time, leaving torchlight behind. Above, the Red Keep's corridors smelled of lemon and polish, as if cleanliness could scrub away what had happened in the yard. Servants ducked their heads. Guards watched him with stiff backs. He felt eyes on him everywhere. When he reached the outer courtyard, the sky was already turning the color of old bruises. Ravens circled the towers. Somewhere beyond the walls, King's Landing sprawled in smoke and noise and hunger. A messenger in Lannister colors waited near the gate, hands folded. The man's smile was too polite. Prince Oberyn, the messenger said. Lord Tywin requests. Lord Tywin, Oberyn interrupted gently, can request many things. He will not always receive them. The messenger's smile faltered. He wishes to speak with you, privately. Oberyn's amusement cooled. I have spoken with him, publicly. That is enough. The messenger's eyes darted to the guards. Oberyn read the movement like a letter. Pressure, threats, perhaps worse. Tywin had not lost his appetite. He had only changed the meal. Oberyn leaned closer, letting the messenger smell the faint bitterness of the poison still on his skin. Tell your lord, Oberyn whispered, that Dorne remembers. Then he walked through the gate and into the city as if it belonged to him too. Behind him, in the Red Keep's depths, lions sharpened their claws. The sea greeted Oberyn before Sunspear did. He smelled it when the road bent toward the coast, salt and sun and the faint stink of fish left too long on a dock. He heard it in the wind that tugged at his cloak like an impatient child. The air here was warmer than King's Landing's heat, a warmth that felt like living skin rather than a punishment from the sky. Sunspear rose from the sand and stone as if it had grown there. Pale walls, spear towers, the sunburst banners snapping bright against the morning. The water gardens lay beyond, an oasis of green and laughter tucked into the harshness. When Oberyn had been a boy, he had hated the gardens for their softness. As a man, he understood them. Dorne was not only spears. It was water saved in drought, shade offered without promise of debt. Prince Oberyn Nymeros Martell waited beneath a canopy of woven reeds, his wheelchair positioned so he could see the children splashing in shallow pools. He looked smaller than Oberyn remembered from the Red Keep's dreams, frail, wrapped in a blanket despite the warmth. His face was calm in the way of men who learned to store storms behind their eyes. Oberyn Martell stood beside him like a flame dressed in orange silk, jewelry catching sunlight. Her smile when she saw Oberyn was quick, then cautious, as if she feared smiling too much might invite the gods to snatch him away. Ellaria Sand approached first, hands open. Her eyes searched his face for damage. "You should have died," she said, as if it were a scolding. Oberyn kissed her cheek, tasting salt and citrus. "I had other plans." Oberyn Sand stood near a fountain, arms bare, a spear taller than she was resting against her shoulder. She looked him up and down as if measuring whether the man who had returned was the same one who had left. Nymeros Sand leaned on a column with the lazy grace of a cat, dark eyes glittering. Tyene Sand, in her modest robes, hands folded like a scepter's, watched with a softness that fooled only strangers. Dorne lifted a hand. "Brother." Oberyn knelt, because kneeling in Dorne was different than kneeling in King's Landing. Here it was not submission, it was acknowledgement. "I bring you news," Oberyn said. "And a corpse." Doran's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I have heard. Ravens fly faster than princes." "Ravens lie," Oberyn replied. "Princes are merely careless." Arianne's laugh burst out before she could stop it. Then her expression sobered. "They say you killed him. They say Tyrion Lannister lives." "Tyrion Lannister breathes," Oberyn said. "For now." Doran's gaze turned toward the pools, where a child squealed as another splashed him. "And Elia?" The name settled over them like shade. The water garden's laughter seemed far away suddenly. Oberyn's jaw tightened. "Gregor Clegane is dead." "That is not what I asked." Oberyn met Doran's eyes. He saw pain there, deep and carefully arranged like stones in a wall. "He confessed," Oberyn said. "Not the name you want, not loudly enough to crack King's Landing in two, but enough that every man with ears knows what he was. Enough that every man with a conscience remembers." Doran closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the calm was back, but Oberyn could see the cost of it in the tightness around his mouth. "And Tywin Lannister?" Arianne asked, voice sharp. "Tywin Lannister sat very still," Oberyn said, "as if stillness could make the world obey." Obara spit into the fountain. "Let me take men north. Let me bring back his head." Doran's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. "No." Obara's lip curled. "You say no to everything." Doran's voice stayed gentle. "I say no until the right moment. That is not the same." Oberyn watched his brother, feeling the old frustration stir. Doran's patience was a cage that had always felt too small, and yet it had kept Dorne from being crushed beneath the heel of stronger kingdoms. Oberyn understood that too. Understanding did not make it easy. "I did not come home to beg you for war," Oberyn said. Arianne's brows rose. "Then why?" "Because," Oberyn interrupted, and his voice drew every eye. "The world is shifting." Doran's gaze sharpened. "Explain." Oberyn reached inside his cloak and drew out a folded letter, edges worn from travel. He handed it to Doran. The seal was broken already, Oberyn's habit, but the wax bore a mark of a merchant house in Lys. Doran unfolded it slowly, reading with care. His eyes moved, pausing on lines that made his fingers tighten. When he finished, he did not look up immediately. He stared at the paper as if it were a map and the ink were roads that might lead to salvation or ruin. Arianne leaned over, impatience bright. "Father," Doran exhaled. "A horn," he said softly. Nymeris's eyes glittered. "A horn," Oberyn nodded. "In the Iron Islands, there was a Kingsmoot, Euron Greyjoy one. He showed them a horn Valyrian. He claims it can bind dragons." Silence. Even the children's laughter seemed to dim, as if the gardens themselves were listening. Tyene spoke first, voice mild. "Dragons are dead." Oberyn's smile was thin. "So they said about honor." Doran's fingers tapped the arm of his chair. "We have heard whispers of Daenerys Targaryen," he said. In the east, 3 dragons. Aerian's face changed at the name, and Oberyn remembered the stories they had been fed as children. Targaryen blood, marriages planned and unplanned, promises made in secret. Doran had always carried those promises like stones in his pocket. Whispers, Oberyn said, have teeth now. The Greyjoys are sending ships east. The Horn goes with them. Doran's expression tightened. And you think, I think, Oberyn said, stepping closer, that if a Kraken brings a horn to a dragon queen, he will not bring it as a gift without demanding a kingdom in return. I think the Ironborn will wrap themselves around dragons like barnacles around a ship, and they will call it destiny. Obara snorted. Let them try. Dragons burn ships. Oberyn's eyes flashed. Unless the horn does what it claims. Doran looked at him long and hard. And what would you have us do, brother? Oberyn did not hesitate. Steal it. Aerian sucked in a breath. Nymeria smiled like someone offered a dance. Obara's grip tightened on her spear. Tyenne's calm cracked for a heartbeat, revealing excitement beneath the piety. Doran's face stayed still, but Oberyn saw the war behind his eyes. Caution against opportunity, fear against necessity. That horn, Doran said slowly, is a thing of sorcery. If it truly binds dragons, it could bind the world to whoever holds it. Exactly, Oberyn replied. And you would put such a thing in my hands? Oberyn leaned in, voice low. I would put it in Dornish hands, or I would break it. Either way, I will not leave it to a Kraken. Doran's gaze drifted again to the pools, to the children who did not know of horns or dragons or kingsmuts. Quentyn, he murmured. Aerian stiffened at her brother's name. What of him? Doran's eyes returned to Oberyn. I sent him east, he said quietly, to seek Daenerys Targaryen, to offer her. His voice caught, then steadied, to offer her an alliance. Oberyn's smile softened. And if he arrives with a marriage pact, and the Greyjoy arrives with a horn, who do you think she will listen to first? Doran's fingers clenched. You would go. Oberyn spread his hands. I am already halfway there in my mind. Illyria's hand found Oberyn's wrist, gentle but firm. The east is far, she said, and full of men who do not know your name. Oberyn kissed her knuckles. Then I will teach it to them. Aerian's eyes burned. If you go, she said, you do not go alone. Obara grinned. Send me. No, Doran said, before Oberyn could answer. Obara is too loud. Obara bristled. Loud is honest. Doran's gaze shifted to Nymeria, then Tyene, weighing blades and masks. We will decide, he said. Oberyn's impatience flared, and then he saw it. Doran's fear. Not fear of death. Fear of losing his children, his brother, his people. Fear of making the wrong move and watching Dorne burn for it. Oberyn placed a hand on the arm of Doran's chair, squeezing once. You taught me patience, he said softly, but you did not teach me to sit still while wolves and lions and krakens sharpen their teeth. Doran's eyes met his. And you did not teach me to gamble my people on a story. Oberyn's smile returned, slower now. Then let us gamble on something real. Doran held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once, small and heavy as a door closing. Go, Doran said. The word sent a shiver through the gardens like wind through leaves. Oberyn straightened, heart hammering with something that felt like joy and dread braided together. He looked at his daughters, at Illyria, at Aerian, at Doran. Very well, he said. Let us hunt a horn. Plans in Dorne were not made with drums. They were made with whispers and ink and eyes that measured consequences as carefully as distances. Oberyn bent over the map as if he could pin the sea down with his fingers. The stepstones were scattered across the parchment like broken teeth. Shipping lanes were marked in quick strokes, dotted with notes written in a captain's rough hand. Currents, pirate dens, places where men disappeared. The Ironborn won't hug the coast, said Captain Reichel, a lean man with skin browned by sun and salt. They'll take open water, cut south to avoid Storm's End's patrols, then east. fast if they have the wind. They'll stop, Nymeria Sand said, tapping a finger on the map near Tyrosh. They always stop. Even krakens need fresh water and fresh meat. Obara snorted. We can take them anywhere. Give me 3 ships and men who can climb like goats. Doran's men had given Oberyn 5 ships. Sleek, low, swift. Not war galleys meant to smash but to slip. The kind of ships that could appear as merchants until the moment they became wolves. Tyene Sand stood with her hands folded, eyes serene, as if she was listening to a Septon explain sin. Oberyn knew the truth. Beneath the calm, Tyene's mind was sharp and eager, and her poisons were gentler than Oberyn's only because she liked her victims alive long enough to regret. You will come, Oberyn said, not asking. Tyene met his gaze. If you wish it, Oberyn smiled.
Ido.
Arianne watched from the balcony's shadow, arms crossed. She had argued with Doran late into the night, voice rising and falling like waves against stone. She wanted to go too. Doran had refused. He could not afford to risk both his brother and his heir in one throw. Oberyn understood Arianne's anger because he had once been angry at the same thing. Doran's fear dressed as wisdom, but now he felt the weight too. He had no right to drag Arianne into the teeth of the world. Still, he did not like leaving her behind. You look as if you're about to leap from that balcony, Oberyn called up to her. Arianne's mouth tightened. I look as if I'm watching men make decisions that will cost me. Oberyn's grin flashed. If I return with a dragon, you can scold me from the sky. Nymeria laughed softly. Obara grinned. Tyene's expression remained composed, but her eyes warmed. Captain Reichel cleared his throat. Prince Oberyn, he said, uneasy. This is a horn, a thing of Valyria. If the stories are true, it will not be stolen like a purse. That, Oberyn said, is why I am going. He ran his finger along the map, tracing the likely path. Victarion Greyjoy, he said, tasting the name. Euron's brother, a dull man with sharp hands. He will carry the horn because Euron is not a fool. He will keep it close. Nymeria's dagger tapped the parchment. Then we take it close. Obara leaned forward. Board him. Not with banners, Oberyn said. Not with spears held high and war cries. We are not announcing ourselves. Obara's lip curled. Coward's work. Oberyn looked at her, eyes bright. Clever work. Obara opened her mouth, then shut it, grudging. She respected clever, even if she pretended not to. Tyene spoke, voice gentle. How will you know which ship carries it? Oberyn's smile returned. Because the horn will be guarded like a god, and because I have friends. His friends were not lords. They were dockmasters and sailors and prostitutes and sellswords who owed him favors or feared him or loved him. Oberyn had collected people the way some men collected coins. Not for wealth, but for the quiet power of knowing which doors would open. A scroll lay beside the map, its wax seal broken. Tyrosh, Oberyn said, reading. A contact says the Ironborn have already paid for fresh water at the docks. They are not stopping long. They fear pursuers. Because they have something worth stealing, Nymeria murmured. Oberyn nodded. We sail tonight. Arianne moved, stepping out of shadow into sunlight. Her eyes were bright and furious and proud all at once. If you die, she said, voice tight, I will hate you. Oberyn lifted a brow. Only if I die? Arianne's laugh came out like a sob. She crossed the room quickly and embraced him. Her hair smelled of citrus and heat. For a heartbeat, he saw her as a child again, climbing his shoulders, demanding stories of the sea. Bring it back, she whispered into his ear. Whatever it is, bring it back, and come back with it. Oberyn held her tightly, then released her before the moment could become too tender, too dangerous. He looked at his daughters. Nymeria, he said, you stay. Nymeria's expression sharpened. Why? Because someone must remain here who knows what we're doing, Oberyn said. And because if I take Obara and Tyene, your father's patience will split in two. Nymeria's eyes flashed. My father is not. Oberyn raised a hand. Your mother's patience, he corrected, and Nymeria's mouth twitched despite herself. Obara scoffed. Send me, then. Doran's man, Maester Caliot, shifted uncomfortably near the braziers, as if he wanted to argue that dragons were a story and horns were superstitions. He remained silent. The East had made liars of many maesters lately. Oberyn's gaze moved over the table. Maps, letters, small knives, a pouch of coin heavy with promise. The kind of tools he trusted. The horn was not here. It was out on the sea, wrapped in iron hands. Captain, Oberyn said to Reichel, I want your fastest ship leading. No torches at night. No songs. We are shadows. Captain Reichel swallowed and nodded. As you command. Tyene stepped closer to Oberyn, her voice a whisper meant for him alone. You are certain you want to take the horn, she said softly, and not destroy it when you find it. Oberyn's eyes stayed on the map, but his voice lowered. If it binds dragons, he said, it is a danger, but it is also a key. A key to what? Tyene asked. Oberyn's smile faded, becoming so, meeting harder. To justice, he said, to a world where lions cannot hide behind walls and crowns. Tyene studied him for a moment, then nodded once, like a priestess accepting a confession. Outside, the wind shifted. The sea called. Oberyn rolled the map, tied it, and tucked it beneath his arm. Come, he said, let us see if krakens bleed. The sea did not love Victarion Greyjoy. It tolerated him the way a knife tolerates a hand, by cutting it when it could. He stood on the deck of the Iron Victory with water sheeting off his cloak, his fingers flexing against the damp as if the salt had turned his joints stiff. The wind was unkind today, gusting hard and then dropping to nothing, leaving the sails snapping like angry mouths. Below the foredeck, locked in a chest bound with iron, lay the thing that had changed everything. The horn his brother had given him with a smile that felt like a curse. Dragonbinder. Victarion had not liked the way it looked. Red as dried blood, banded in gold, covered in glyphs that crawled when the light struck them right. He liked it even less after the man who first blew it died with his lungs black and steaming. The sound had been wrong. It had crawled into Victarion's teeth and bones, lingering long after the echo faded. But he did not fear it. Victarion Greyjoy had feared storms and drowning and Euron's laughter. Once. He had beaten fear out of himself like a flaw in iron. Now he wanted what the horn promised. Dragons. He wanted to bring them to the Iron Islands and watch the world kneel. He wanted to prove to Euron that the drowned god had chosen the wrong brother. He wanted to take Daenerys Targaryen as he took everything. By force, by right, by the strength of his hands. A shout came from the prow. Sails! Victarion turned, eyes narrowing against sea spray. At first he saw only gray water and the jagged line of clouds. Then the shapes emerged. Low, swift ships, sails reefed tight, coming in from the south like sharks cutting across the current. Not merchants, not fisherfolk. Victarion's hand went to his axe. Ironborn reavers gathered, hungry and eager. They loved a fight the way drunkards loved ale. The deck hummed with anticipation. Moqorro stood near the mast, a dark figure wrapped in red cloth, his skin glistening with rain. The priest's eyes looked like coals buried beneath ash. Victarion had plucked him from the sea after a storm, and the man had repaid him with prayers and prophecies that tasted like blood. Moqorro's lips moved soundlessly. Victarion did not care what god he spoke to. Gods were for men who could not take what they wanted with their hands. What are they? Victarion growled. A trap. One of his captains spat. Pirates. Victarion stared. The ships moved too smoothly for pirates, too disciplined. They held formation like soldiers. Bring the horn, Victarion snapped. Not to blow, to guard. A thrall hurried below. Victarion's men closed around the chest when it was brought up, shields overlapping. The horn's presence seemed to make the air heavier. Even men who feared nothing shifted uneasily, eyes darting away as if the glyphs might bite. The approaching ships raised no banners. that, to Victarion, was the worst kind of insult. In the Iron Islands, a man who fought without a name was either coward or something worse. The nearest ship slowed just enough to match their pace. A figure stood at its prow, cloak whipping in the wind. For a heartbeat, Victarion could not make out details. Then lightning flashed, and the man's face appeared. Sharp, handsome, smiling. A Dornishman. Victarion's mouth twisted. "What does a sand snake want at sea?" The Dornishman raised a hand in greeting, as if they met at a feast rather than on open water. "Victarion Greyjoy!" the man called across the gap, voice carrying over wind and waves. "I have heard your reputation. I wanted to see if it was true." Victarion spat into the sea. "Who are you to speak my name?" The Dornishman's smile widened. "Oberyn Nymeros Martell." The name rippled through Victarion's crew. They knew it. The Red Viper. A man who had killed knights in duels and made friends of enemies with a laugh and a kiss. A man rumored to have poisoned men with a touch. Victarion felt his grip tighten on his axe. "What do you want?" "To talk," Oberyn Martell called, as if the answer were obvious. "To trade. To share wine." "To," Victarion roared, cutting him off. "I do not share. I take." Oberyn's eyes glittered. "Then we understand each other." The Dornish ship edged closer. Victarion's men tensed, ready to hurl grapnels, ready to board and kill. Makoro's voice suddenly rose, low and strange, words Victarion did not understand. The priest's hands lifted, palms open to the storm. Victarion did not look at him. He watched Oberyn Martell, watched the man smile, the way he stood too relaxed for someone about to die. Something was wrong. The Dornish ships shifted in the water, not closing like a line of attackers but spreading, as if herding.
Victarion Eska tightened.
He had fought in enough raids to know the shape of an ambush. Oberyn raised a cup. Gods knew where he'd gotten it, and tipped it in a mock toast. "To your health," he called. Victarion bared his teeth. "You will die." Oberyn's laughter carried across the waves. "Perhaps," he said, "but not today." Then the wind changed again, sharp and sudden, and the sea around the Iron Victory erupted with movement. Dark shapes just beneath the surface, boats without sails, oars churning. Victarion's eyes widened. Under us, grapnels flew up from the water like claws. Iron chains snapped tight. Men shouted as the ship lurched. Not forward, but sideways, dragged by unseen force. Victarion's crew surged toward the rails, axes raised. But the first enemy to climb over was not a pirate with wild eyes. It was a man in Dornish leather with a spear. Victarion swung his axe and took the man's head off in one blow. Blood sprayed across the deck, hot against rain. More came. Oberyn Martell vaulted onto the Iron Victory's rail with impossible ease, landing lightly on wet boards. He did not wear armor heavy enough for a proper fight. He wore confidence like mail. Victarion charged him with a roar. Oberyn's spear flicked out, not at Victarion but at T. He manned beside him. The spear point pierced a throat. The man fell gurgling. Victarion swung. Oberyn ducked, the axe blade passing over his head close enough to stir his hair. Oberyn stepped back, smile still there. "Careful," Oberyn said, voice almost conversational. "You'll hurt someone." Victarion snarled. "I will hurt you." Oberyn's eyes flashed. "Try." The deck became chaos. Steel, screams, rain, blood mixing with salt. Victarion fought like a storm, axe rising and falling, cutting men down. But Dornishmen moved differently. They flowed. They stabbed and withdrew, poison points seeking gaps. Victarion felt a sting on his forearm and crushed the attacker's face with his fist. Pain flared. He ignored it. His eyes flicked once to the chest holding the horn. 2 Dornishmen were already near it, blades out, moving as if drawn. "No!" Victarion bellowed. Turning, Oberyn Martell stepped into his path. Victarion swung for the Dornishman's head. Oberyn's spear met the axe haft, redirecting it with a twist. The force jarred Victarion's shoulders. Oberyn moved in close, too close for the axe, and drove his knee into Victarion's gut. Victarion grunted, staggering. He swung anyway, blind with rage, but Oberyn was already gone, slipping aside like smoke. Behind them, the chest's lock snapped. The lid flew open. Victarion saw the horn, red and gold, lifted by slender hands. Not a man's hands, a woman's. Tyene Sand stood on the deck, her plain white robes spattered with blood, her expression calm as prayer as she cradled Dragonbinder like a child. Victarion roared and lunged. Oberyn's spear flashed, striking Victarion's thigh. It did not pierce deep, but it burned like fire. Victarion faltered. Oberyn smiled. "You should have guarded it better." Then Oberyn whistled, sharp, cutting through chaos, and the Dornish ships shifted again. Hooks were cut, chains released. Smoke erupted from somewhere, thick, choking, smelling of pitch and herbs. Victarion's men coughed, eyes watering. Oberyn grabbed Tyene's arm. "Now," he said. They moved together toward the rail. Dornishmen threw grapnels back to their own ships, lines taut. Oberyn and Tyene leapt. For a heartbeat they hung over the sea, rain and spray and the horn's red gleam between them. Then they hit the Dornish deck hard and rolled, coming up with blades ready. Victarion surged to the rail, eyes wild, but the smoke thickened and arrows hissed, forcing him back. The Dornish ships pulled away, oars biting water, sails catching the changed wind. Oberyn stood at the prow, hair plastered to his forehead, cloak snapping. He lifted Dragonbinder high, letting Victarion see it clearly. Victarion's roar chased them across the waves, a sound of fury and humiliation. Oberyn's laughter followed, softer, like venom under skin. The Iron Victory remained behind, wounded and raging, while the Dornish ships vanished into rain and distance with the horn that could chain dragons. They hid where the stepstones broke the sea into 1,000 secrets. The cove was narrow and sharp-edged, rock teeth rising on either side, sheltering a strip of sand and a small pool fed by the tide. Their ships sat low in the water beyond the rocks, oars muffled, sails down, men speaking in whispers as if the sea itself might carry their words to Victarion Greyjoy. Oberyn sat on a flat stone near a small fire. The flames licked at driftwood and threw light onto the horn in his hands. Dragonbinder was heavier than it looked. It felt warm, as if it had been held near a hearth for days. The gold bands were cold by contrast, biting into his palms. The glyphs, curved, jagged, ancient, seemed to drink the firelight and then release it in faint pulses, like a slow heartbeat. Tyene Sand knelt beside him, a cloth in her hands. She wiped salt water from the horn with careful reverence, like cleaning an altar. "It's alive," one of the sailors whispered. "Not alive," Oberyn corrected softly. "Hungry." The thrall knelt on the sand a few paces away, wrists bound, eyes wide. He was a man taken from Victarion's ship in the confusion, an Ironborn captive who had been unlucky enough to be small and quick. Now he shook like a leaf. "I won't," the thrall rasped. "I won't blow it. I won't." "You will," Obara Sand said from the shadows, her spear planted in the sand. She had not sailed with them at Doran's command, but she had caught up at sea with another ship, ignoring orders with a stubbornness that ran in Oberyn's blood. Oberyn had considered sending her back. He had decided, instead, that sometimes a storm was useful. Obara leaned forward, eyes hard. "Or you'll die anyway. Choose." Tyene's voice was gentle. "We can make it quick," she told the thrall, as if offering mercy. "Or we can make it long." The thrall's eyes darted to Oberyn. "You," he said, voice shaking. "You're a prince. You." Oberyn watched the man for a long moment. He saw fear, yes, but also something else, understanding. The thrall knew, in his bones, that this was beyond ordinary cruelty. This was ritual. This was magic, and magic did not care if you were prince or thrall. It only cared if you were fuel. Oberyn could have ordered a sailor to blow it. He could have forced a Dornishman to sacrifice himself. He could have spared the thrall and kept his hands clean. He thought of Doran's calm face. He thought of Ariane's fierce eyes. He thought of the water garden's laughing children. Then he looked at Dragonbinder and felt the faint pulse beneath his fingers. "Do it," Oberyn said. Obara grabbed the thrall by the hair and hauled him closer. Tyene held the horn out, turning it so the mouthpiece faced the man. The thrall sobbed. "Please," he whispered. "Please." Oberyn's voice stayed quiet. "If the horn works, you die," he said. "If it does not, you live." The thrall stared at him as if trying to understand the cruelty of hope. Tyene pressed the mouthpiece to the thrall's lips. "Breathe," she murmured. "Then blow." The man's cheeks filled. His eyes squeezed shut. He blew. The sound that came out was not the sound of a horn. It was a scream turned into music, a low, vibrating howl that seemed to crawl through stone and water and bone. The air trembled. The fire flared high, then guttered as if afraid. The sailors cried out, hands clapping over ears. Oberyn felt the note in his teeth, in his ribs, in the place behind his eyes where thought lived. It made his vision blur and sharpen at once. The thrall's body arched. Smoke poured from his mouth. Not breath, not steam, smoke, black and thick. His eyes flew open, white around the iris, and his throat made a wet, ruined sound. His skin flushed, then darkened in patches as if burned from within. He tried to pull away, but Tyene held the horn steady, expression serene, while Obara pinned him with brute strength. The note continued. Oberyn felt something answer. Not here, not in the cove, but far away. A tug, faint as the first pull of a tide, and then stronger. The horn's glyphs flared, glowing red gold, and the heat in Oberyn's hands intensified until it was almost painful. The thrall collapsed, smoke still pouring from his mouth. The note died suddenly, leaving ringing silence. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the sea slapping rock. Then the thrall coughed once, a wet gurgle, and did not move again. Tyene set the horn down carefully, as if it might bite. "It works," she whispered. Obara stared at the dead man with something like awe and disgust. "That's not a weapon," she muttered. "That's a curse." Oberyn picked the horn up again. It was hotter now. The mouthpiece was stained black, as if soot had been baked into it. He turned it over, reading the glyphs with his fingers as if touch could translate. A faint sound drifted over the sea. Not a ship, not a wave, a distant roar. The sailors stiffened, eyes wide. One crossed himself with shaking fingers, half-remembered faith rituals clumsy in a Dornish hand. Oberyn felt the roar inside his chest more than he heard it. It resonated with the horn's note, like an echo answering its own call. Tyene looked at him, her calm finally cracking. "You heard that," she said. Oberyn nodded. Obara's spear tip dug into the sand. "Dragons," she breathed, and the words sounded like prayer and threat. Oberyn stared out into the Black Sea, imagining the distance between here and Meereen, between his hands and the beasts that could turn armies into ash. He also imagined Daenerys Targaryen, a girl turned queen with 3 dragons at her side, a figure of story and rumor. Somewhere in the world, she held fire like other women held a child. And he had stolen a horn meant to chain that fire. Illyria's voice came to him from memory, soft and worried. "The east is far." Yes, Oberyn thought, and it is full of men who will try to take what is not theirs. So he would take first. Tyene stepped closer, knife in hand. "We should bind it," she said quietly. "If the horn answers to a master, make sure it answers to you." Oberyn's eyes flicked to her blade. "Blood," he said. Tyene nodded. "Yours, not another's. If there is a price, pay it with your own skin. Not ours." Obara snorted. "He'll pay it with our lives anyway." Oberyn smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he said, "but I will start with my own." He held his palm out. Tyene cut him swiftly, a clean slice across the skin. Blood welled bright in the firelight. Oberyn pressed his bleeding hand against the horn's glyphs. The heat flared. The glyphs pulsed, and for a moment Oberyn felt a strange sensation. as if something far away had turned its head toward him. He saw, in his mind's eye, the flash of green-gold scales and a pupil like a slit cut into molten metal. Then the sensation faded, leaving only the horn's warmth and the steady drip of his blood onto Valyrian red. Tyene wrapped his hand. "Now," she said. Oberyn looked up at the stars, sharp and cold. Somewhere beneath them, dragons breathed. "Now," Oberyn agreed. "We go east." Volantis smelled of smoke and sweat and money. The city rose in layers. Slums pressed against the river, markets choking with bodies. Then the black wall like a clenched fist holding the older, richer city inside. Above it all, the temple fires burned, always burning, their orange glow staining the dusk sky as if the sun had bled and refused to die. Oberyn moved through the crowd with his hood up, though he knew hoods were a poor disguise for a man who walked like he owned every stone he stepped on. Still, it helped. It made people glance and then look away, assuming his face was nothing worth remembering. Dragonbinder traveled with them in a long chest carried by two Dornish men with shoulders like oxen. The chest was wrapped in cloth and sealed, but Oberyn could still feel the horn's presence through the wood. It was like traveling with a sleeping beast, silent, heavy, dangerous even at rest. Tyene walked at his side, her modest robes dusty from travel, her hair hidden beneath a scarf. She carried a pouch that clinked softly with coin and glass vials. In Volantis, a healer could go places a warrior could not. Red priests drifted through the streets like embers blown on wind. They were everywhere, scarlet robes bright even in dim alleys, their voices rising and falling in chants. Slaves paused to bow their heads. Masters sneered and then glanced away, uneasy. Fire was worshipped here, and fire did not care who held the whip. Oberyn's contact was a woman named Lyria, once a Lysine courtesan, now a merchant with more secrets than silk. She met them near a fountain carved with dragons, her hair piled high, eyes lined dark. "You made it," Lyria said, her smile quick. "I heard the Ironborn were raging like wounded sharks." "They rage," Oberyn said, "because something was taken." Lyria's eyes flicked to the chest. "You truly stole it." Oberyn's grin was brief. "Of course," Lyria swallowed. "Men say the horn kills whoever blows it." "Men say many things," Oberyn replied. "Some of them are even true." Tyene's gaze stayed calm. "Can you find someone who can read the glyphs?" she asked. Lyria hesitated. "There are warlocks," she said, "and priests, but the priests..." Her eyes darted toward the temple fires. "They will want something. They always want something." Oberyn's eyes followed hers to the great temple of R'hllor, where flames licked high and shadows danced against carved stone. "Priests," he murmured. "At least their price is often honest." Lyria frowned. "Honest? No, only loud." Oberyn smiled. "Loud is better than quiet. Quiet prices are paid after you think the bargain is done." He followed Lyria through twisting streets toward the temple. As they walked, he watched Volantis watching him. Soldiers in tiger cloaks with curved blades at their hips, slaves with brand marks on their cheeks, merchants with eyes sharp as needles. He wondered how many here had heard of Daenerys Targaryen, how many dreamed of her dragons burning the Black Wall down. Hope was dangerous in a city built on chains. At the temple steps, heat hit him like a hand. The entrance was wide, flanked by braziers that roared, throwing sparks into the darkening sky. Red priests stood like sentinels, their faces solemn, their eyes bright with firelight. One stepped forward, tall and thin, hair shaved close. His gaze slid over Oberyn, over Tyene, over the chest. "You carry fire," the priest said in Valyrian accented common tongue. Oberyn's smile was polite. "I carry a question." "Fire answers questions," the priest said. "Sometimes with ashes." Oberyn lifted his chin. "Then let us see what burns." The priest led them inside. The temple's interior was vast, stone columns rising into darkness, walls carved with scenes of flames and shadows. Braziers lined the floor, their heat making the air shimmer. The smell was thick smoke, oil, incense. Worshippers knelt, murmuring prayers, their faces lit and haunted. At the heart of the temple, a great fire pit burned, flames twisting high. Priests moved around it like dancers, feeding it oil, chanting in a language older than Volantis chains. A figure approached from the far side, an older man with skin the color of polished wood, his eyes reflecting fire like mirrors. His red robes were embroidered with gold thread, and on his neck hung a heavy collar marked with the symbol of a burning heart. He looked at Oberyn as if seeing through him. "You are not Valentine," the man said. "Observant," Oberyn replied. "You carry a thing that should not be carried," the man continued. Tyenne's hand tightened on her pouch. Oberyn's smile did not move. "Perhaps," he said, "but it is being carried nonetheless." The man stepped closer to the chest, placing his hand on the wood. He closed his eyes. For a moment, the temple's noise seemed to fade, the chants distant, the crackle of flames suddenly loud. When he opened his eyes again, they were brighter. "Valyria," he whispered, voice thick with reverence and fear. "A horn of dragons." Oberyn's gaze sharpened. "You can read it." The priest studied him. "I can feel it," he said. "Reading comes after. Understanding. Sometimes never." Tyene spoke softly. "We need to know how it works, what it costs." The priest's mouth twitched. "The cost," he said, "is always blood." Oberyn's smile faded. "We know that." The priest's gaze snapped to him. "You have used it." Oberyn did not deny. "Once. Then you have already stepped into the fire," the priest said. He gestured toward the great pit. "Come." They approached the flames. Heat pressed against Oberyn's face, drying sweat on his skin instantly. The priest lifted his hands, palms open, and began to chant. The words rolled like thunder. The flames responded, twisting higher, taking on shapes, coiling, reaching, as if alive. Oberyn felt the horn beneath the chest's lid pulse faintly, answering the chant like a hound hearing its master's whistle. Images formed in the fire, blurred a T first, then sharpening. Stone walls, pyramid, chains, a shadow of a beast, wings folded, scales catching light. Green gold, its head lifted, and its eye opened, slit pupil molten. Oberyn's breath caught. The dragon turned its head, and the fire showed its mouth open in a silent roar. Then the image shifted, another shape in the flames. A man on a ship, iron armor, a horn in a chest. Victarion Greyjoy, though Oberyn had never seen him in fire before. The priest's flames knew him anyway. The image of Victarion blurred and burned away, replaced by something else. Something that made Oberyn's stomach tighten. A woman with pale hair, her face streaked with soot and sweat, eyes fierce. Daenerys Targaryen. She stood amid smoke and bodies, a dragon's wing casting shadow over her. The priest's voice rose. The flames surged. The image of Daenerys flickered, and for a heartbeat her eyes seemed to look directly at Oberyn through the fire. Then the flames twisted again, showing a horn. Dragonbinder, its glyphs glowing. The priest's voice dropped suddenly, becoming a whisper. "The horn binds," he said, eyes fixed on the fire. "But binding is not the same as owning." Oberyn's jaw tightened. "Explain." "The horn calls," the priest said. "The dragon hears. The dragon comes. But dragons are fire. Fire cannot be chained without burning the chain." Tyenne's voice was steady. "So the master burns." The priest's gaze snapped to her. "Yes," he said, "or the world burns first." Oberyn stared into the flames until his eyes watered. He saw the chained dragon again, struggling, its wings scraping stone. He saw the horn glow. He saw, faintly, a man's silhouette near the beast, too small to be Victarion, too sharp to be any Valentine. It looked, in the fire's cruel suggestion, like him. Oberyn felt excitement and dread twist together. "Meereen," he said softly. "The dragon is in Meereen." The priest nodded. "Two are chained. One is free." "And the free one?" Oberyn asked. The priest's expression darkened. The free one is hungry. Oberyn's smile returned, slow. Hungry dragons are easier to tempt. Tyene glanced at him. Or easier to die to. The priest leaned closer, voice low and urgent. If you do this, he said, you will draw eyes. Not only hers, not only Kraken's. There are others who listen when horns sing. Oberyn's gaze stayed on the flames. Others like who? The priest swallowed. Crow's eye, he whispered. The one who sent it. His shadow stretches far. Oberyn's smile sharpened. Let him stretch, he said. I will cut. He turned away from the fire, feeling its heat at his back like a warning. Outside, Volantis night deepened. The temple flames roared on, hungry and holy. Oberyn left with Dragonbinder still hidden in a chest, and with the image of a chained dragon burning behind his eyes. The farther east they sailed, the stranger the sky became. The sun was the same sun. It had to be, for what else could burn that bright? But it felt different here, harsher, closer, as if the gods had lowered it to stare. The water turned from the narrow sea's deep green to a bright, pitiless blue. The air grew thicker, heavy with heat and the scent of distant land. Spice, rot, smoke. Oberyn stood at the bow and let the wind slap his face. His bandaged hand itched where Tyene had cut him. The wound had healed quickly, but the horn had left something else behind. An awareness, faint and persistent, like the sense of being watched when you walk alone at night. Sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he heard the echo of that wrong note from the horn. Sometimes he thought he heard something answer. Tyene sat near the mast with a small book open on her lap. She had written down the Red Priest's words in careful, neat script, as if ink could tame prophecy. Binding is not owning, she murmured, reading her own note aloud. Oberyn smiled without humor. Men write the same about marriage, he said. Tyene glanced up. This is not a jest. No, Oberyn agreed. It is not. He looked back at the chest where Dragonbinder lay wrapped in dark cloth. They had not touched it since Volantis. The priest's warning had lodged under Oberyn's skin. There are others who listen. Euron Greyjoy, the crow's eye, had sent the horn into the world like a hook into water. Even without it in his hand, he would feel the tug when someone else tried to reel in what he had thrown away. Oberyn did not fear Euron, not in the way men feared storms or plague. But he respected him the way you respect a snake you cannot see. The coast appeared as a smear on the horizon, then sharpened into shape. Low land, dunes, then the distant silhouette of something unnatural rising above it. Pyramid. Even from miles out, Meereen announced itself like a fist raised against the sky. Smoke drifted above the city in thin columns. Not cooking fires. Too many. Too steady. War. One of the sailors muttered. Oberyn felt his heartbeat quicken. How many ships? He asked. The sailor shaded his eyes. Hard to say, but there are sails near the mouth of the Skahazaden. Not ours. They lowered the sail and took to oars, slipping closer along the coast where broken rocks could hide them. The ship moved with quiet speed. Sweat slicked the rowers' backs. The sea slapped the hull like an impatient hand. As they neared, the smells thickened, burnt oil, garbage, death. Even the wind seemed tired. They found a small cove and anchored behind a spit of rock. Oberyn stepped onto sand that was paler than Dorne's and hotter, almost painful through leather soles. They moved inland at night, cloaks pulled close, faces shadowed. The land around Meereen was flat and unforgiving, dotted with scrub and the occasional ruined structure left from older wars. In the distance, beyond the city's walls, campfires flickered. Many, scattered like a second city made of tents. A siege. Tyene's voice was low. Who besieges whom? Oberyn watched the lights. Everyone besieges everyone in Slaver's Bay, he said. It is how they breathe. They circled toward the river, seeking entry the way rats sought grain. Oberyn found a line of slaves being herded toward the city gates. Thin men and women carrying baskets, guarded by soldiers in mismatched armor. Merchants, Tyene whispered. Slaves, Oberyn corrected. They waited in the shadows until the line passed close. Oberyn stepped out, catching the eye of one of the guards, a young man with tired eyes and a scar on his cheek. Oberyn's hand moved, and coin flashed briefly in moonlight. The guard's gaze followed it like a starving dog. Oberyn leaned close, voice soft in the man's ear. "We are healers," he murmured. "We have medicine. Your men are dying in tents. Let us in." The guard swallowed. His eyes darted to Tyeen's modest robes, to her calm face. He nodded once, quick. "Stay close," he muttered. "Don't speak." They slipped into the line like shadows joining shadows. Oberyn kept his hood up, head bowed, shoulders rounded. Felt wrong, felt like pretending to be small. But he did it anyway because the horn in the chest they carried under cloth was too important to risk on pride. The gates of Meereen loomed, massive and carved with grotesque faces, the stone blackened by smoke. Soldiers watched from above, spears jutting like teeth. The line of slaves shuffled forward. The guards at the gate barely glanced at them. Inside, Meereen stank of old wealth and new desperation. Narrow streets twisted between brick buildings. Torches burned despite the heat, flickering in doorways, lighting faces that looked hungry and afraid. They passed a square where men in masks, harpies carved into gold, stood with whips shouting orders. Slaves moved quickly, heads down. Oberyn watched it all, his jaw tight. Dorne had its cruelties, but this was a city built on suffering like a house built on bones. A child ran past, barefoot, laughing with the wild joy of someone who didn't yet understand the city's hunger. A soldier shoved him aside, and the child fell hard. Oberyn's hand twitched. He forced it still. Not yet, he told himself. Not now. They reached a place near the base of the Great Pyramid, where the stone rose like a mountain made by men who thought themselves gods. Guards clustered here, more heavily armed, eyes sharper. Oberyn felt the weight of their suspicion like pressure. A masked overseer approached, voice harsh. "You," he snapped in Giscari. "What is this?" Tyeen answered in the same tongue, her accent careful. "Medicine," she said, lifting a small vial. "For the sick." The overseer's eyes narrowed. "Many come with medicine now. Some bring poison." Tyeen's gaze stayed calm. "Poison is also medicine," she said softly, and Oberyn bit back a laugh at the truth. The overseer's expression shifted. "Unser. Tain." He glanced at the soldiers, then back at Tyeen. Perhaps he saw something in her. Confidence, competence, the faint threat beneath politeness. He spat to the side. "Fine," he snarled. "But if you make trouble," Oberyn bowed his head. "We will not," he said in Giscari, voice roughened to sound like a common man. They were waved through into an interior courtyard where the air felt cooler, shaded by towering stone. Here, servants hurried, carrying water and food. The smell of roasting meat mixed with the stink of sweat and fear. Oberyn's eyes lifted toward the pyramid's upper levels. Somewhere up there, a queen ruled a city she hated. Somewhere beneath, in chains, dragons breathed. He felt it then, faint but unmistakable. A vibration through stone. A rumble too deep to be thunder. Tyeen's eyes widened slightly, confirming she felt it too. Oberyn's pulse quickened. He whispered, barely moving his lips. "They're here." Tyeen's voice was a breath. "And so are we." They moved deeper into the pyramid, following servants, slipping through corridors where guards grew fewer. Oberyn's mind mapped doors and turns, escape routes and choke points. He had stolen the horn. Now he had to steal a dragon. Heat lived underground here, trapped in stone like a heartbeat trapped in a chest. The passageways beneath the Great Pyramid narrowed and widened unpredictably, carved long ago by hands that had never imagined dragons would sleep in their tunnels. The air grew thick, stinking of sulfur and stale meat. The torches burned strangely, their flames bending as if pulled by invisible breath. Oberyn moved silently, each step careful, listening. The guards above had been bribed, distracted, drugged. Tyeen's work, delicate as lace and as lethal. Still, Oberyn trusted no corridor in a city of masks. Behind him, 2 Dornish men carried the chest with Dragonbinder wrapped inside, their faces pale with sweat. Obara had wanted to come down too. Oberyn had forbidden it. Obara would have tried to spear the dragon and call it courage. Tyene held a lantern. Its light shuddered to a narrow slit. It painted a thin stripe along the wall, revealing old scratches, claw marks, deep grooves cut into stone. Oberyn's throat tightened. They reached a heavy iron door, barred from the outside. Tyene knelt, fingers working a set of stolen keys. The lock clicked. The bar lifted with a groan of iron against iron. A hot wind spilled out, smelling of smoke and wild animal. The door swung inward. The chamber beyond was vast, higher than Oberyn expected, the ceiling lost in dark. Chains crisscrossed the space like spiderwebs spun from iron. The floor was scarred with gouges and burns. Piles of bones lay in corners, goats, cattle, perhaps men. And in the center, half coiled in a nest of broken wood and torn stone, lay a dragon. Green gold scales caught the lantern's thin light like jewels. The beast's body rose and fell in slow breaths, each exhale sending heat rolling across the floor. One wing was folded, leathery membrane stretched over bone like a sail. Its head rested on the ground, but even sleeping it looked alert, danger held in muscle. Regal, Oberyn thought, though he had never seen it named. He knew the stories. Daenerys Targaryen's dragons, named for dead men. This one bore the green of summer leaves and the gold of old coins. Another shape shifted in the shadows, paler, almost white, with a crest of gold. Valyrian lifted its head slightly, chains clinking, eyes opening like lamps. Both dragons watched them. Oberyn felt his body tense, every instinct screaming to flee, to run from a predator that had never needed to learn fear. He forced himself still. Predators smelled fear. A low rumble vibrated through the chamber, rising from deep in Regal's chest. The dragon's head lifted, slow, the neck chain tightening with a metallic screech. Its eyes opened fully, burning, slit pupils narrowing as they focused on the intruders. Tyene's lantern hand trembled. She steadied it with her other hand, her lips moving in a silent prayer or curse. One of the Dornish men swallowed audibly. Oberyn stepped forward. He pulled his hood back, letting the dragons see his face. He did not know why he did it. Perhaps because he wanted them to recognize him as more than a shadow, more than prey. Regal's nostrils flared. The dragon inhaled, drawing in scent. Oberyn felt the hot wind of it. He smelled ash. He smelled meat. He smelled something sharp and ancient, like old metal heated in a forge. The dragon's gaze fixed on him. Oberyn's heartbeat hammered. Then he felt it, faint, like a thread tightening around his ribs. The horn, not blown yet, but present. This magic, awake, hungry, reaching. Regal's head tilted slightly, as if listening to a sound only it could hear. Tyene whispered, voice barely there. "It knows." Oberyn nodded once. He turned to the chest. "Bring it," he murmured. They set the chest down carefully on the stone floor. Oberyn's fingers moved to the lid, hesitating. The priest's warning echoed in his mind. The horn binds, but binding is not owning. He imagined Daenerys Targaryen's face in the flames. He imagined her fury. He imagined her grief if she returned to find one of her dragons taken. He told himself a hard truth. Dragons were not children. They were weapons, and the world had already reached for them with dirty hands. If he did not reach too, Dorne would be crushed beneath someone else's fire. He opened the chest. Dragonbinder lay wrapped in cloth. Even covered, it seemed to radiate heat. Regal's rumble deepened. Valyrian's chain rattled as it shifted, restless. Tyene whispered, voice steady now, the calm returning like armor. "Who blows it?" she asked. Oberyn looked at her. "Not you." Tyene's jaw tightened. "You can't." "If I blow it," Oberyn said quietly, "I die. And then what?" "A horn with no master and a dragon with no chain." Tyene's eyes flicked to his bandaged palm. Your blood is on it. Oberyn nodded. Yes, that is the point. He turned to the gagged guard they had dragged down, young, eyes wide with terror, still in Meereen's armor. He had been unlucky enough to be alone in a corridor when Tyenne's poison kissed his neck. The guard struggled as Oberyn knelt before him. Oberyn spoke in Giscari, his accent rough but clear. You will blow this horn, he said. If you do, you may die quickly. If you refuse, you will die slowly. Decide. The guard's eyes pleaded. Tears ran down his cheeks. He shook his head violently, gag muffling his sob. Oberyn stood, expression unreadable. Remove the gag, he told Tyene. Tyene hesitated only a moment, then pulled it free. No, the guard gasped. No, please, please. Oberyn's voice stayed calm. You have seen what they do to slaves, he said. You have whipped men for the crime of being born. Now you will serve something larger than your masters. The guard shook, words tumbling. I, my family. Blow, Oberyn said simply, and there was no mercy in it. Obara would have sneered at mercy anyway. Oberyn felt no pride in his hardness, only necessity. Tyene lifted Dragonbinder, unwrapping it with careful hands. The horn gleamed. In the lantern's thin light, red as dried blood, bands of gold bright. The glyphs seemed to pulse faintly, as if excited. The dragons watched the horn with sudden, fierce attention. Regal's head lifted higher. The chain snapped tight, iron groaning. The dragon's wings flexed slightly, membranes shivering. Oberyn felt sweat slide down his spine. Tyene pressed the mouthpiece to the guard's lips. The guard sobbed. Please, he whispered. Oberyn's eyes did not soften. Blow, he repeated. The guard drew a shaking breath and blew. The sound tore through the chamber like a blade. It was worse here, enclosed by stone. It made the air vibrate. Dust fell from the ceiling. Oberyn felt the note slam into his bones, into his teeth, into the old injuries in his joints. The lantern flame bent sharply, almost extinguishing. The guard's face contorted. Smoke poured from his mouth immediately, thick and black. His eyes rolled back. His skin flushed, then blistered in patches as if burned from within. The horn's glyphs flared bright, red gold, so luminous they painted the stone with shifting light. Regal roared. The roar was not an answer in sound. It was an answer in fury. The dragon lunged forward against its chain, yanking so hard the iron anchor in the wall shrieked. The chain links snapped tight, one link bending. Valyrian roared too, but higher, more frantic, wings beating against the chain's restraint. The guard collapsed, smoke still pouring, the horn's note continuing even as his lungs turned to ash. Oberyn grabbed the horn from Tyene's hands. The heat burned his palms. He held it anyway, gripping it like a weapon and a crown. He felt something snap into place inside him, like a lock turning. Regal's eyes fixed on him with terrible intensity. The chain that held the dragon shuddered. Another link bent. Oberyn's heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his ribs. He stepped forward, toward the dragon, horn still humming with residual vibration. Regal lowered its head, nostrils flaring, breath hot enough to dry tears instantly. The dragon's gaze did not waver from Oberyn. Oberyn swallowed. He spoke, though he did not know if dragons understood words. Easy, he murmured, voice barely audible over the dying echo of the horn. Easy. The horn's glyphs pulsed beneath his fingers like a heartbeat. Regal's chain snapped with a sound like a tree breaking. The dragon surged forward. Tyene gasped. The Dornish men stumbled back. Oberyn stood his ground. Regal's head came down close enough that Oberyn could see the tiny scars on its scales, the soot staining the ridges near its nostrils. The faint shimmer of old blood dried between plates. A thin thread of saliva hung from one fang. The dragon inhaled, drawing in Oberyn's scent again. Oberyn felt the wind of it and smelled his own sweat, his own fear, his own blood. Then the dragon's gaze softened, only slightly, but enough. Oberyn felt the thread inside him tighten. Not painful, but present. A connection thin and dangerous. He had not tamed the dragon. He had not befriended it. He had hooked it. Regal's head turned, suddenly, as if listening. The dragon roared again, and this roar echoed up through the pyramid's stone, up into Meereen's night. Oberyn looked at Tyene. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but steady. "It worked," she whispered. Oberyn's smile was a flash of teeth. "Yes," he said. Above them, the city would be waking to terror, and Oberyn Nymeros Martell stood in the heart of it, holding a horn that smelled of burned lungs, facing a dragon that now knew his name in its bones. The city screamed. It started as distant shouts, then became a chorus. Bells clanged somewhere above, frantic, uneven. Footsteps thundered down corridors. Doors slammed. Orders barked in Giskery rows and fell like waves breaking. Regal's roar rolled up through the pyramid like thunder trapped in a well. Oberyn moved fast. He did not linger to admire the dragon's beauty or to savor triumph. Triumph was what men felt right before dying. He had stolen a horn and woken a beast. Now he had to survive the consequences long enough to make them matter. "Up," he told his men. "Now." Tyene grabbed his sleeve, nails biting through cloth. "Oberyn," she hissed. The first time she had used his name without title tonight. "If you go up there." "I must," Oberyn replied, voice tight. "If I leave it chained, if I leave it here, someone else will take it. Or it will kill us all trying to escape." Tyene's eyes glittered. "You will die." "Perhaps," Oberyn said and smiled grimly. "But not before the world sees." They rushed through tunnels, dragging the chest with the horn, leaving the dead guard's smoking corpse behind. The smell of burnt flesh followed like a curse. Above, chaos intensified. The pyramid's interior was a maze of stone halls and staircases. Servants fled, shrieking, faces white. Guards poured down stairwells, spears and shields ready, eyes wide with fear. Oberyn moved through them like a knife. A guard lunged. Oberyn sidestepped and drove a dagger into the man's throat, quick and clean. Another swung a sword. Tyene's hand flicked, and the man stiffened as poison kissed his skin, his expression freezing in confusion before he collapsed. They reached a stairwell that spiraled upward toward a balcony open to the night. Regal followed, surprisingly agile for such massive weight. The dragon's claws scraped stone, throwing sparks. Its wings brushed walls, tearing off chunks of ancient brick. Its breath turned the air into an oven. At the balcony, night hit Oberyn's face like cool water, cool compared to the dragon's furnace heat, though still warm enough to sweat. He stepped out. Meereen lay beneath him, a city of brick and shadow and torchlight. Fires flared in streets where people ran. The great black wall loomed. Beyond it, the siege camps burned with scattered flames, some from cooking, some from panic. On the balcony, guards froze at the sight of him. Their eyes flicked from Oberyn to the dragon behind him, and terror drained the will from their bodies like blood. One man found courage or desperation. He raised a crossbow with trembling arms. Oberyn moved without thinking. He threw himself sideways just as the bolt hissed past, splintering stone. He rolled, came up, and flung a dagger. The dagger struck the crossbowman's hand. The man screamed, dropping the weapon. Then Regal pushed forward. The dragon's head emerged into the open air, and the balcony seemed suddenly too small, too fragile. Its eyes burned with the reflection of flames below. Its nostrils flared, drawing in the city's scent. The fear, the smoke, the meat. It spread its wings. The membranes unfurled with a sound like canvas snapping in a storm. The wings blocked starlight, casting the balcony into shadow. Wind rolled off them, knocking men off balance. One guard fell to his knees, sobbing. Oberyn stared up at the dragon's back, ridged with spines, scales overlapping like armor forged by gods. It was higher than a horse, higher than any mount he had ridden. There was no saddle, no rans, only raw power. He felt the thread inside him tighten. Tyene grabbed his arm again. "You cannot ride it like a horse?" she whispered, voice strained. There is no. I will ride it like a dragon, Oberyn said. He stepped toward Rhaegal's side. The dragon's flank rose and fell with its breathing, each breath a wave of heat. Oberyn's mouth went dry. Then he jumped. He caught a ridge between scales, fingers slipping at first, then finding purchase. The scale edges were sharp enough to bite skin. He hauled himself up with muscle and stubbornness, boots scraping, cloak whipping. For a moment he dangled, half on, half off, the city yawning beneath him. Then he swung a leg over and rolled onto the dragon's back, chest pressed against hot scales. The heat was intense, like lying on sun-baked stone. He felt it through cloth, through skin, reaching for bone. His hands clutched ridges, nails digging. Below, Tyenne's face was pale upturned, eyes huge. She looked impossibly small compared to the dragon's body. Oberyn, she shouted, voice lost in the sudden rush of wind as Rhaegal shifted. Oberyn lifted his head, meeting her gaze. He wanted to say something clever, something comforting, something that would make her believe he was still in control. Instead, he gave her the truth, shouted over the dragon's rumble. Get out, he yelled. Get the horn out. If I fall, you run. Tyenne's mouth opened in protest. Rhaegal moved. The dragon pushed off the balcony with its hind legs, and the world dropped away. For a heartbeat, they were falling. Oberyn's stomach lurched into his throat. He clung to the ridges like a man clinging to life. Wind tore at him, trying to peel him away. The city's lights spun. Then the wings caught air. Rhaegal beat once, massive, powerful, and the fall became flight. Oberyn's body slammed down against the dragon's back with the force of it. He gasped, lungs burning as air was ripped away and then forced back in. Tears sprang to his eyes from wind and fear. He blinked them away. They rose. Meereen shrank beneath them, a maze of fireflies and smoke. The siege camps beyond the walls were clearer now. Tents clustered, lines of soldiers, siege engines like dark insects. On the outer wall, alarms rose as men pointed upward. Lines broke. Horses screamed. Rhaegal opened its mouth. Flame poured out, not like a torch but like a river of burning air, bright green gold at its heart. It struck the firs. T-cluster of tents, and canvas vanished in an instant. Men caught fire like dry straw. The ground itself seemed to ignite where the flame touched. Oberyn felt the heat wash back over him, scorching his face, singing hair at his temples. He clung harder, laughing half in triumph, half in madness. They swept across the camp, fire trailing behind like a comet's tail. Siege engines burned, wood cracking, iron glowing. Men ran, tiny and frantic, their screams swallowed by the dragon's roar. Rhaegal beat its wings and rose again, circling. Oberyn looked back at Meereen. The city's walls glowed with reflected flame. Torches on battlements shifted as men scrambled, aiming crossbows upward. He saw tiny streaks, bolts arcing into the sky. One struck Rhaegal's wing membrane. The dragon shrieked, a sound that made Oberyn's blood freeze. The wing jerked. Flight wobbled. Oberyn nearly slid. He grabbed a spine ridge with both hands, arms shaking. Easy, he whispered through clenched teeth. Not sure if he spoke to the dragon or himself. The dragon's mind flared with pain and fury. Oberyn felt it like fire in his own skull. He understood something then, clear and cold beneath the exhilaration. The horn had not given him a mount. It had given him a war. Not just against Meereen's enemies. Not just against slavers or krakens or lions. A war against the dragon itself. Against its wildness. Against the world's hunger for fire. And somewhere, far away over dark water, a man with one black eye and one blue might have smiled in the night, feeling the horn's song echo back through whatever sorcery bound his heart to it. Oberyn tightened his grip, leaning into the dragon's heat. Below, the camps burned. Above, the sky opened endless and indifferent. Oberyn Nymeros Martell lifted his face into the wind, tasted smoke and salt and possibility, and laughed once, sharp as a blade. Because at last, after all the years of waiting and wounds, Dorne had fire. Tyene Sand felt the great pyramid tremble, as if the stones had grown afraid of what lived inside them. The roar that rolled down the halls was not merely sound. It was pressure, a shove against the lungs, a command to panic. Torches flared as drafts rushed through passages, then guttered, leaving streaks of smoke clinging to the ceiling like dark cloth. She moved with the chest held tight against her body, arms burning, fingers numb from strain. 2 Dornishmen had tried to carry it for her. She had refused. If she fell, she wanted it to be her hands that failed, not theirs. "Clear!" someone shouted in Giscari. "Clear the steps." Unsullied pressed past, bronze spikes on their helms catching torchlight. They did not run. They advanced with the measured certainty of men who had been trained to walk into death without blinking. Spears leveled, shields up. Their discipline carved a path through the stampede of servants and frightened guards. And for a heartbeat, Tyene saw what Daenerys Targaryen must have seen when she chose them. Order in a world that loved chaos. A Meereenese guard grabbed at her sleeve, eyes wide, mouth shaping accusations. Tyene did not hesitate. Her hand dipped into her pouch and flicked powder into his face. The guard inhaled reflexively. Then his eyes rolled back as if he had been punched by an invisible fist. He collapsed, choking on his own tongue. Tyene stepped over him, breath steady, heart hammering with a calm she did not entirely trust. Above them, the whole pyramid seemed to groan. Somewhere higher, men screamed. The sharp, brief cries of those who had seen a dragon at arm's length and understood, finally, what it meant to be small. She reached a stairwell crowded with bodies. Servants pressed together, sobbing, clutching each other, trying to force their way down. A woman with a bleeding scalp threw herself against Tyene, knocking the chest sideways. Tyene's grip nearly failed. Heat seemed to pulse through the wood, a faint warmth that reminded her what rested inside. She snarled, not in fear but in fury, and shoved the woman away with an elbow hard enough to crack ribs. The woman collapsed, wheezing. Tyene did not look back. Mercy was for later when the world stopped burning. At the stairwell's top, she found a masked overseer blocking the way, blade drawn, eyes darting between her and the chaos below. His harpy mask gleamed gold. Even here, even now, vanity refusing to die. "What is that?" he demanded in Giscari, voice cracking. "What have you brought into my queen's house?" Tyene lifted her chin. "A cure," she said softly. He raised his sword. Tyene smiled, small, almost gentle, and flicked a needle from between her fingers. It sank into the skin at his wrist. He looked down, confused, then tried to speak again. No sound came out. His throat closed as if an unseen hand had squeezed it. He dropped the sword, clawing at his neck, collapsing like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Tyene stepped around him and descended, chest cradled, torchlight strobing across her face as shadows of wings passed over the walls. She did not know where Oberyn Nymeros Martell was now, only that the sky had taken him. And if the sky rejected him, it would drop him back down in pieces. The bolt hurt the dragon the way a thorn hurt a lion. Small in size, enormous in insult. Regal shrieked again, a sound so raw it made Oberyn's stomach clench. The wing membrane flexed and fluttered, blood beating along the puncture and trailing in thin lines that caught the firelight like dark ribbons. The dragon's flight wobbled, a sudden drunken sway that stole breath and certainty from the air. Oberyn drove his fingers deeper into the ridges between scales. The edges bit his skin. He welcomed the pain. Pain was real, and reality was a rope when the world turned to wind and smoke and falling. "Do not die," he shouted into the dragon's spine, as if Regal might take the words like an order. "Not now." The dragon did not answer with obedience. It answered with anger. Its head snapped back toward the city walls where the archers stood, tiny figures under torchlight. Oberyn saw their faces for a heartbeat, young, terrified, furious. Then the dragon opened its jaws. Flame erupted backward in a sweeping arc that licked across battlements. Brick blackened and cracked. Men screamed and dropped, their crossbows clattering like spilled tools. The wall's torches winked out in a hiss of smoke. Regal's wing beat again, harder, the injured membrane straining. The air shuddered. They gained height, then dipped, then gained again, each motion a violent argument between gravity and muscle. Oberyn's lungs burned. His eyes streamed. He tasted ash and salt and the bitter, metallic tang of dragon blood carried on the wind. Below, the siege camps were no longer orderly rows. They were a wound. Fire ate canvas and flesh alike, turning tents into collapsing skeletons of poles. Horses ran screaming, manes aflame. Men scattered, some throwing themselves into trenches, some into each other, all of them suddenly remembering that war had always been a prayer to chance. Regal banked sharply, and Oberyn nearly slid off. For a heartbeat, he hung sideways over open air, city and camp spinning beneath him like a tossed coin. He felt the thin thread again, tight, hot, present, connecting him to the dragon's storm of thought. Not words, not images, sensations. Pain in the wing, hunger in the belly, rage at the sting of iron, and beneath it all a wild yearning for open sky. Oberyn leaned forward, pressed his cheek to a scale ridge, and forced his breathing to slow. "Listen," he whispered, though he did not know who he spoke to. Regal, the horn's lingering magic, or the part of himself that refused to fall. "We are both trapped unless we break their hands." The dragon's mind surged in response. Not agreement, but momentum. It wanted to run. It wanted to burn. It wanted to be free of chains, of walls, of men. Oberyn gave it a direction anyway, because direction was the closest thing to command he had. He turned his gaze beyond Meereen's walls, beyond the burning camps, to the darker emptiness where the river wound like a black ribbon. "Out!" he rasped. "Out of their reach." Regal's wings angled. The dragon fled the city's bolts and spears, carrying Oberyn with it into the night where fewer men dared to aim at gods. The wind grew cleaner away from the smoke. The stars returned, sharp points of cold. Oberyn's arms shook with exhaustion, his fingers numb, but he held on. He did not yet know how to land a dragon. He only knew how to refuse to let go. The ground came up too fast and not fast enough. Regal dropped in a long, brutal glide, wings trembling with fatigue and pain, then slammed down into a churned trench where siege workers had once dug in orderly lines. Now the trench was half molten mud, half ash, steam rising from blackened earth. The dragon's claws tore deep grooves as it tried to steady itself, tail whipping and smashing into a collapsed barricade. Oberyn slid down the dragon's side more than he climbed. His legs hit the ground and nearly folded. He caught himself on one hand, palm burning where the skin had been flayed raw by scales. He tasted bile and forced it down. Regal turned its head, nostrils flaring, eyes bright. It looked at Oberyn as if deciding whether the small creature clinging to its back was still useful, still connected, still worth not eating. Oberyn stood slowly, hands raised, palms open, blood and all, like a man approaching a skittish horse that could bite through a wagon. "Easy," he murmured again. "Easy." The dragon's wings half unfurled, then settled. It huffed smoke, a low rumble in its throat. Movement stirred nearby. Men crawling through ash, faces blistered, clothes on fire. One tried to stand and immediately fell, screaming. Another crawled toward a waterskin and died with his hand inches from it. Oberyn did not waste pity on slavers who had come to put chains back on a queen's city. Still, the sight made his stomach twist, not from compassion but from the sheer scale of what he had unleashed. A small cluster of figures stood at the edge of the ruined trench, thin men and women, faces scarred with slave marks, eyes wide. Freedmen, perhaps, or camp slaves who had seized the chaos as a door opening. They stared at the dragon. They stared at Oberyn. One woman fell to her knees and pressed her forehead to the ground. Her lips moved rapidly, prayer spilling out like water. Oberyn's voice came out rough. "Stand," he told her, in the common tongue first, then in broken Giscari. "Stand. I am no god." The woman raised her head slowly, eyes full of fear and hope tangled together. She did not stand. From behind a wrecked cart, a Dornish knife guard emerged, cloak smeared with soot. He froze when he saw Oberyn beside the dragon, then rushed forward. "My prince?" the man gasped, dropping to one knee. "We lost you. The city." "I am here," Oberyn said, and the words felt absurdly simple against everything else. "Where is Tyene Sand?" The guard hesitated. "Inside," he said. "She went back down. With the horn," Oberyn finished. The dragon's head lifted slightly at the word, as if it recognized the shape of what had bound it. Oberyn felt the thread tug, faintly, as though the horn were not merely an object but a note still vibrating through the world. He looked back toward Meereen. The Great Pyramid rose like a black mountain, torches flickering along its heights. Alarms still rang. Smoke drifted in layers. The city was a hive struck by a stone. Oberyn's jaw tightened. He had a dragon outside the walls and his daughter inside them with the key that had stolen it. This was the moment where a man chose whether he was a raider or a ruler. He turned to the freed slaves watching him with trembling reverence. "Do you want chains again?" he asked, voice carrying in the night. They stared, confused. Oberyn pointed at the burning camps. "Those men came to put you back in them." The kneeling woman swallowed. "No," she whispered. "Then remember this," Oberyn said. "Fire is not mercy. Fire is a door. You must choose to walk through it." He turned back to Regal, eyes narrowing at the injured wing. The bolt still jutted from the membrane, a cruel little spike. Oberyn stepped closer, slow, careful. Regal's eye followed him, unblinking. "Let me," Oberyn murmured. He reached toward the bolt, fingers hovering. The dragon's breath warmed his face. For a heartbeat, Oberyn thought Regal would snap at him, end the experiment with one bite. Instead, the dragon held still, tremor running through its wing. Oberyn grabbed the bolt and yanked. Blood welled, hot and dark. Regal snarled, claws digging into the earth, tail lashing. Oberyn staggered back, bolt in his hand, heart hammering. The dragon did not strike him. It only stared, and in that stare Oberyn felt something shift. Still not trust, but recognition. The small creature heard it but also freed it. Oberyn exhaled shakily. Then he looked toward the city again, and the cold part of him counted what remained. Tyene Sand inside, the horn with her, enemies everywhere, and a dragon outside that might decide at any moment it no longer needed him. He clenched his bloodied hands. "Back," he whispered to himself. "We go back." The Great Pyramid's war chamber smelled of oil and sweat and fear dressed up as authority. Ser Barristan Selmy stood with his hands on the table's edge, knuckles white. His armor was scuffed, his cloak dusty, as if even honor had been dragged through smoke. Age sat on him like a second set of plates, heavy, inevitable, but his eyes were sharp and furious. Grey Worm stood at his side, helmet spikes catching lamplight. He did not fidget. He did not raise his voice. His stillness was a blade. Skahaz Emo Kandak, the shave pate, paced like a caged animal, his harpy mask shoved up on his brow so his shaved scalp shone with sweat. "It is treachery," he snarled in Giskery. "Inside the pyramid, inside the queen's own walls. Kill them all. Burn their houses. Nail their tongues. We are not slavers," Barristan snapped, voice hard. Skahaz rounded on him. "You are not Meereenese," he spat. "You do not understand what mercy buys here." Across the room, Meereenese nobles in fine togas argued with panicked voices, their hands fluttering like wounded birds. Some shouted for more guards. Some demanded the dragons be killed. Some whispered prayers to old gods who had never answered anyone. In the shadows near a pillar, Tyrion Lannister held a cup of wine and watched them all as if watching actors on a stage. His bruises had faded to sickly yellow. His eyes were too bright, too amused for a man in a city on fire. A dragon roared again, closer than before, and dust drifted from the ceiling beams. The room fell silent for a heartbeat. each man imagining those jaws closing over the pyramid. Grey Worm spoke then, calm as a drawn breath. "The dragon is outside the walls," he said in the common tongue. "The camps burn. The enemy runs." Skahaz's lips curled. "And the dragon's rider?" Barristan's gaze narrowed. "There was a rider?" he asked sharply. Tyrion's smile flickered. "So the stories are true," he murmured into his cup. "And I thought tonight was already full." Skahaz slammed a fist on the table. "Find him. Kill him. That dragon belongs to the queen." Barristan's jaw clenched. "The dragon belongs to itself." Skahaz glared. "Words," he hissed. "Words do not stop fire." Tyrion lifted his cup slightly, as if toasting. "Fire stops most things," he said, "which is why everyone wants to hold it." Barristan turned his head toward Tyrion, eyes hard. "What do you know?" Tyrion held up a hand. "Only that a man does not suddenly ride a dragon by accident. There is a tool, a trick, a tether." He took a sip, then shrugged. "And if there is a tether, there is someone holding the other end." Grey Worm's gaze sharpened. "A horn," he said abruptly. Skahaz snapped his head toward him. "What?" Grey Worm's voice stayed flat. "There are whispers among the Unsullied," he said. "A horn shown at the sea, a horn of Valyria, kills the blower. It calls dragons." Barristan's expression tightened. "Dragonbinder," he breathed, as if speaking the name tasted foul. Tyrion's brows rose. "Well," he said softly, "that certainly complicates the evening." Skahaz's eyes burned. "Then we find the horn," he said. "We find who holds it. We cut off their hands." Barristan's jaw clenched. "If someone holds such a thing in this city, we must take it quietly. Panic will tear Meereen apart faster than any slaver." Panic already had teeth, Tyrion thought, watching the noble's trembling hands. Another roar shook the room, and this one sounded different. Not chained rage, open sky rage. Tyrion's mind raced in quick, cruel calculations. A dragon outside the walls burning the besiegers was, from a certain perspective, helpful. A dragon not answering to the queen was also the beginning of a new kind of disaster. He wondered who would be mad enough to steal a dragon in the queen's absence. Then he remembered the name whispered in King's Landing like a prayer to poison. Oberyn Nymeros Martell. Tyrion's mouth curved slightly. If it was him, Tyrion thought, then tonight was going to get much worse before it got better. Tyrion did not ask permission to leave the pyramid. He simply left because in a city where everyone was shouting, a man who moved quietly could go far. Two Unsullied followed at a measured distance, their spears angled down but ready. Grey Worm had given them to Tyrion with a look that said, "I do not trust you, but the Queen's city cannot afford you dead in an alley tonight." Tyrion wrapped a hood around his head and walked through streets that looked as if a giant child had thrown fire through them. Ash drifted like gray snow. The smell of burned canvas and cooked meat crawled into his throat. He coughed once, then forced his lungs to accept the city's new air. Doorways were crowded with faces, freed slaves peering out, eyes wide, murmuring to one another. Some stared upward with awe. Some crossed themselves in foreign gestures. Some smiled with raw, frightened relief. A green-gold shadow passed over brick walls, swift and enormous. Tyrion looked up instinctively, and for a heartbeat he saw it. Regal cutting through smoke, wings beating, head turning as if searching for something. A rider clung to its back like a burr on a wolf. Tyrion's pulse quickened. He could not see the rider's face from here, but the shape of him, the posture, the arrogance even when clinging for life, felt familiar. He followed the direction of the dragon's flight, letting his feet choose streets that sloped toward the outer gates, toward the distant glow beyond the walls where camps had burned. People shouted questions at him in Giscari. He pretended not to hear. At a crossroads, a Meereenese woman stepped into his path. Her cheek bore a slave scar, old and white. She held a child tight to her chest, the child's face pressed into her shoulder. "Is it her?" the woman asked in broken common tongue. "Is the Silver Queen back?" Is the dragon hers? Tyrion looked at her and felt something tighten behind his ribs. Not sympathy, exactly, but recognition of desperation. In King's Landing, desperation wore silk. Here it wore scars. I don't know, Tyrion admitted. The woman's eyes glistened. But the dragon burned them, she whispered. The men who would chain us again. Yes, Tyrion said softly. It did. She stared at him a moment longer, then stepped aside as if he had become suddenly irrelevant compared to the sky. Tyrion continued on, guided by smoke and rumor. Near the gate, he found bodies stacked in hurried piles. Slavers and sellswards, faces blackened, mouths open. Unsullied moved among them with torches, burning what could not be buried. Their discipline looked almost merciful beside the chaos. Tyrion's escort stopped him at the gate with crossed spears. No, one said, voice flat. Tyrion lifted his hands. I merely wish to see the sky, he said. It is rare in this city. The Unsullied did not laugh. A commotion rose from the wall above. Shouts, pointing, bolts loaded. Tyrion craned his neck. Regal swept in low, skimming above the gate towers. The dragon's wing dipped, and for a heartbeat Tyrion saw the bolt hole torn in membrane, blood shining. The rider's cloak was gone. His hair streamed loose. Even from this distance, Tyrion felt the rider's grin like a heat. Then the dragon banked toward the burned camps again, and Tyrion knew, with a certainty that tasted like poison and opportunity, that the rider was not Daenerys Targaryen. The rider was a man, and Tyrion Lannister wanted to meet him before someone else decided to kill him. When the Unsullied scout found Oberyn, he found him in the only place a sane man would not stand, between fire and a dragon. Regal crouched in the burned field like a god that had decided, briefly, to tolerate the earth. Smoke curled from its nostrils. Its injured wing shivered occasionally, a subtle tremor that betrayed pain. Its eyes followed every movement around it with predatory clarity. Freed slaves gathered at a distance, torches held high, faces shining with sweat and awe. They kept far enough away that the heat of the dragon's body did not blister them, but close enough to feel brave. Some had weapons, broken spears, kitchen knives. Others had only their hands, clenched into fists that had once been forced open for chains. Oberyn stood with his feet planted, shoulders back, as if daring the world to tell him he did not belong in this circle of smoke and scale. His hands were raw and bleeding, wrapped poorly with strips torn from a cloak that no longer existed. Blood and ash made mud on his skin. The Unsullied scout approached cautiously, spear lowered but ready. His helmet spikes caught firelight. Behind him, two more Unsullied moved like shadows, silent, disciplined. You, the scout said in the common tongue. His voice held no fear, only assessment. You are not the queen. Oberyn's mouth curved. You are observant. The Unsullied's gaze flicked to the dragon, then back to Oberyn. Grey Worm says bring you, he said. Bring you to the Great Pyramid. Now. Oberyn's smile did not move. Grey Worm can invite me, he said. He cannot command me. The Unsullied's grip tightened on his spear. The dragon belongs to Daenerys Targaryen, he said, as if reciting truth. Regal rumbled low, feeling the tension, perhaps tasting it in the air. The freed slaves flinched, torches wavering. Oberyn lifted a hand slowly, palm open toward the dragon. Not touching, just acknowledging. The dragon belongs to fire, he said softly, and fire belongs to no one. The Unsullied scout's eyes narrowed. You will come, he repeated, voice harder. Oberyn glanced at the gathered freed slaves. They watched him as if he held their fate in his bleeding hands. He hated that. He had not stolen a dragon to become a new master. He stepped closer to the Unsullied, lowering his voice so only the soldier could hear. If I walk into your pyramid like a captive, he murmured, your nobles will try to kill me. Your masked men will try to kill me. Your allies will panic and do something stupid. His eyes flicked to the dragon. And then this creature will burn the wrong people because it does not know the difference. The Unsullied held his gaze, expression unreadable beneath the helm. Finally, he spoke again, voice measured. Then what? Oberyn's grin returned, sharper. Then you bring Grey Worm here, he said. Or you bring Ser Barristan Selmy. Someone who understands what a dragon is worth. Someone who understands bargains. The Unsullied hesitated, then nodded once, small, decisive. He turned and signaled to his men. One sprinted back toward the city, spear bouncing on his shoulder. Oberyn exhaled slowly, tension easing only slightly. Regal shifted, tail dragging through ash with a hiss. The dragon's head lowered toward Oberyn, nostrils flaring, breath hot enough to dry sweat instantly. Oberyn held still, meeting its gaze. Not yet, Oberyn whispered, not sure if he meant not yet burn, or not yet leave, or not yet decide to eat me. The dragon's eye narrowed. Oberyn swallowed. This bargain, whatever it became, would not be made only with men. It would be made with the creature above all men, the creature that could end every argument by exhaling. He looked toward the city's black silhouette. Somewhere inside, Tyene Sand carried the horn that had begun this. And somewhere far across the sea, Victarion Greyjoy's rage would be rowing after them like a tide that never tired. Tyene Sand had always believed she could keep her hands steady in any storm. Tonight, in the dark belly of a storehouse, she learned the difference between belief and truth. She sat on a sack of grain, knees drawn up, the long chest propped against the wall beside her like a sleeping corpse. The air smelled of dust and old wheat and oil. A single lamp burned low, casting her face in warm shadow. Her fingers moved automatically, cleaning needles with cloth, checking vials, counting what remained. It was something to do, something to control, when everything else had become dragon wings and screaming stone. Outside, boots marched past, unsullied by the sound of it, measured even. They did not run. They did not shout. Their discipline was almost unbearable because it made her feel, for a moment, like she was the only one trembling. A soft knock came at the door. Tyene froze, hand hovering over a vial. Another knock, quicker. A whisper. "Lady," a boy's voice said in Giscari. "Lady, I brought water." Tyene's breath eased slightly. She rose, silent, and moved to the door. Through the slats she saw a thin face, eyes huge, a white slave scar on one cheek. The boy held a water skin out as if offering tribute to a god. Tyene opened the door just enough to pull him inside. He stumbled in, looking around as if the shadows might bite. "Why?" Tyene asked softly. The boy swallowed, eyes darting to the chest. "Because you are with the dragon," he whispered. The word dragon came out like a prayer. Tyene's mouth tightened. "No," she said. "I am with a man." The boy looked at her with the stubborn faith of the desperate. "The dragon burned the slavers," he said. "My mother says the old gods sent it." Tyene almost laughed, almost cried. She took the water skin, touched the boy's cheek gently with 2 fingers. "Where did you come from?" she asked. "From the kitchens," he whispered. "They were shouting. Masks were shouting. They said..." His voice dropped. "They said a foreign man stole the queen's dragon." Tyene's eyes sharpened. "Who said?" The boy hesitated, then whispered a name with fear.
Skahats Montag Kandak.
Tyene's stomach tightened. The Shavepate's hatred burned hot enough to light whole streets. If he believed a foreign man had stolen the queen's dragon, he would not stop until he had a corpse to nail to the pyramid's gate. Tyene looked at the chest again, feeling the horn's warmth even through wood. The tool that had done this. The thing men would kill for, the thing that might kill whoever held it too long. She crouched to the boy's level. "Listen," she said softly. "If someone comes here asking questions, you have never seen me. Do you understand?" The boy nodded quickly, eyes wide. Tyene pressed a small coin into his palm. "Go," she whispered. "And if you see Unsullied, tell them this. Tyene Sand waits, and she carries the key." The boy stared at the coin, then at her. "Key?" he whispered. Tyene's smile was thin. "Yes, she said. A key to fire. The boy slipped out again, disappearing into Meereen's night like a frightened mouse. Tyene closed the door and leaned her forehead against it for a heartbeat, eyes shut. Oberyn, she thought. Where are you now? She imagined him outside the walls with Riegel's heat on his face, bargaining with soldiers, pretending he was not one slip away from being burned or torn apart. Tyene opened her eyes and lifted the lamp toward the chest. The horn's glyphs were not visible, hidden beneath cloth and wood, but she felt them anyway, like a pulse in the dark. I did this, she whispered, not as pride but as confession. Then she sat back down, needles in hand, and waited for the world to decide whether it wanted her alive. They came with discipline and doubt braided together. Grey Worm walked first, spear lowered, shoulders squared. His helmet was off, revealing a face carved from restraint, scarred, young, old in the eyes. Ser Barristan Selmy followed, white hair damp with sweat, his hand near his sword hilt but not drawn. Behind them, half in shadow and half in firelight, Tyrion Lannister limped along with a cup in hand as if refusing to let the night strip him of habit. The freed slaves murmured as the Unsullied approached. Some stepped back, some lifted torches higher, trembling. Rhaegal lifted its head, eyes narrowing. The dragon's wings flexed slightly, injured membrane shivering. Heat rolled off it in waves. Oberyn stood still, hands open, letting them see his raw palms as if to say, I have paid. Grey Worm stopped a cautious distance away. He looked at Oberyn without blinking. You are Oberyn Nymeros Martell, he said. Oberyn's mouth curved. So my name travels. Ser Barristan's gaze flicked from Oberyn to the dragon, then back. By the Seven, he breathed quietly. A dragon, Oberyn agreed. Grey Worm's voice stayed flat. You stole the Queen's dragon. Oberyn tilted his head. The Queen is not here, he said. Her enemies are. They would have killed this creature or chained it until it went mad. I opened the cage. Ser Barristan's eyes narrowed. With what? Oberyn did not answer immediately. He glanced toward the city, toward the great pyramid that held Tyene and the horn like a secret wrapped in wood. Then he looked back at Barristan. A tool, he said carefully. A dangerous one. Tyrion's voice drifted in, mild as wine. A horn, he said. Valyrian. The sort of thing that makes prudent men sweat and foolish men grin. Grey Worm's gaze snapped to Tyrion, then back to Oberyn. Where is it? He asked. Oberyn's smile sharpened. Safe, he lied, because safe was a word that meant nothing where dragons were involved.
Ser Barristans ja ho tinc tanat.
If you have brought Dragonbinder into this, he said, voice hard, you have brought a curse into our house. Our house? Oberyn echoed softly, amused. Meereen is not your house, Ser Barristan Selmy. It is Daenerys Targaryen's burden. Barristan's eyes flashed at the name, pain and loyalty cutting through age. Then you have worsened her burden, he snapped. Oberyn took a step forward, not threatening but claiming space. Rhaegal's head followed his movement, watching, listening in its own wild way. I have burned her enemies, Oberyn said, voice low and intense. Look, he gestured at the smoldering field, at the broken siege lines, at the scattered corpses. If you want to call that worsening, do it. But do not pretend you would not have prayed for a miracle tonight. Grey Worm's face did not change. Miracles have price, he said simply. Oberyn nodded slowly. Yes, he said, and I have paid in blood and risk. Tyrion stepped closer, careful to stay where Rhaegal's head did not loom directly over him. This is fascinating, he said lightly, but perhaps we should speak of what comes next, before someone decides to put a bolt in the prince's head and see what the dragon does. Ser Barristan's gaze flicked to Tyrion with irritation. This is not your counsel, dwarf. Tyrion smiled. It never is, he said. And yet I keep showing up. Grey Worm looked at Oberyn again, voice unyielding. You come to Pyramid, he said. Now, you speak, you give horn, or we fight. Oberyn's laugh was short, sharp. Fight? he repeated, glancing at Regal. You would fight that? Grey Worm's eyes did not flinch. Yes, he said. For my queen. Oberyn studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Not in surrender, but in respect. Very well, he said. I will come, but understand this. If you try to take me like a captive, your city burns. Not because I want it to, because this creature does not understand your laws. Ser Barristan's expression tightened. Then you must be very careful with your words inside those walls. Oberyn's smile returned, slow. I have always been careful with my words, he said. Tyrion's mouth twitched. That's not what I've heard, he murmured. Oberyn glanced at Tyrion, eyes glittering. Then come, he said. Tonight we are all dangerous. He stepped toward the city, and Regal rose behind him with a rumble, wings shifting. The freed slaves gasped, stumbling back as heat rolled over them. Oberyn did not mount the dragon again, not yet. He only walked with it following, a shadow made of scale and fire, and that was perhaps more terrifying than flight. The Great Pyramid did not welcome dragons at its doorstep. Even with Regal kept outside the inner halls, its presence seeped through stone. The air in the council chamber vibrated faintly with each exhale, as if the building itself was remembering that it was made of earth and could be broken. Unsullied lined the walls, spears upright, faces blank beneath helmets. Meereenese nobles clustered together like nervous birds, their fine cloths stained with sweat. Ser Barristan stood stiff, ready to draw steel if words failed. Grey Worm was still as a statue. Skahaz Mo Kandak seethed openly, his harpy mask now pulled down to hide the hatred twisting his mouth. Oberyn stepped into the chamber and felt every ice slice toward him. He placed his hands on the table raw, bloodied, trembling slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline. He did not hide the state of them. Let them see the price of touching dragon flesh. Skahaz spoke first, voice sharp in Giskery. Kill him, he said. Kill him now, and take the beast while it is confused. Ser Barristan's voice snapped back, cold. No. Skahaz's head whipped toward him. You protect him? He hissed. A foreign poisoner who brings sorcery into our queen's house? Oberyn's smile flickered. Poisoner? He repeated in the common tongue, amused. That is what men call me when they fear skill. Skahaz spat. You admit it. Oberyn leaned forward, eyes fixed on the harpy mask. I admit this, he said, voice low and cutting. Your city was about to be taken. Your people about to be chained again. Your dragons about to be killed or stolen by men far worse than me. He lifted one bleeding hand. I opened the cage. Grey Worm's voice cut in calm. You used horn, he said. You used magic. Magic is danger. Oberyn nodded slowly. Yes, he said. Magic is danger. So is a dragon chained in a basement until it goes mad and decides the sky must burn to be free. Barristan's gaze narrowed. Where is the horn? He demanded. Oberyn met his eyes. Not in this room, he said. Skahaz's laugh was ugly. So you keep it, he snarled. So you keep a leash on a dragon. Oberyn's smile sharpened. A leash? He echoed. If you believe that, you are either a fool or a liar. Skahaz stepped forward, hands flexing. Unsullied spears angled subtly, warning. Tyrion watched from near a pillar, eyes bright, absorbing each word like wine. Barristan's voice hardened. Prince Oberyn, he said, if you have stolen one of the Queen's dragons, you have committed an act that will demand an answer when she returns. Oberyn's gaze held steady. Then I will answer, he said. To her, not to you. Not to masked men who dream of cutting throats in the dark. Skahaz snarled behind his mask. Oberyn turned slightly, letting the chamber see his profile, his exhaustion, his calm. I did not come to take Meereen, he said. I did not come to crown myself in foreign fire. I came because a kraken carried a dragon horn across the sea, and if I did not steal it, he would use it, or someone worse would. At the word kraken, a murmur rippled among the nobles, fear of Ironborn stories reaching even this far. Tyrion's voice drifted lightly. Victarion Greyjoy, he said, as if naming a particularly ugly dog. He won't enjoy being robbed. Oberyn's eyes flicked to him. No, he agreed. He will not. Grey Worm's gaze stayed on Oberyn. Why you? He asked bluntly. Why Dorne man steals horn and dragon? Oberyn exhaled slowly. Because Dorne remembers what it is to be ignored, he said. Because lions killed my sister and her children and the realm called it politics. Because the world only listens when fire speaks. Silence held for a heartbeat. Even Skahaz paused, perhaps hearing something in the word children that pierced mask and hatred alike. Barristan's expression softened only slightly. And what do you want? He asked. Oberyn's smile returned, not gentle. A meeting, he said, with Daenerys Targaryen, when she returns. And until then, he glanced at the nobles, at Skahaz, at Grey Worm. I want you to stop trying to kill the dragon. Stop trying to kill me. Let this fire be pointed outward, not inward. Skahaz's voice hissed. And if we refuse? Outside the chamber, Rhaegal exhaled, and the stones seemed to vibrate. Oberyn did not need to threaten. He only spread his hands, showing blood and exhaustion, and let the room imagine what refusal looked like. Grey Worm spoke after a long moment. You stay, he said. You watched. You guarded. Until Queen returns. Oberyn's eyes narrowed. A guest, he said. Grey Worm's voice stayed flat. A guest with spears. Oberyn laughed softly. Fine, he said. I have been a guest in lion dens before. I know how not to be eaten. Skahaz's hatred crackled. He will betray us, he spat. Tyrion's smile was thin. So will everyone, he murmured. That's why we call it politics. Oberyn turned his gaze to the pillar where Tyrion stood. And you, Oberyn said softly, will you advise them to kill me, Tyrion Lannister? Tyrion lifted his cup in a small salute. I would advise them, he said, that killing the man attached to the dragon often ends badly for the men holding crossbows. Oberyn's grin widened. Wise, he said. Perhaps we will speak more. Then he placed his bloodied hands back on the table and waited, because waiting was also a kind of battle. Dawn came like a tired concession. The sky lightened from black to bruised purple to a washed-out gray blue that made Meereen look older than it was. A city carved from ash rather than brick. Smoke still hung in layers, turning the sun into a dull coin. The siege camps outside the walls were mostly silent now. Burned, broken, scattered remnants of an army that had learned fear in one night. Rhaegal perched on a ruined section of the outer wall, claws gripping stone, wings folded tight, head high. From below it looked like a statue built to terrify, green-gold scales catching the weak dawn as if hoarding what light remained. Its injured wing was stained dark, but the bleeding had slowed. It watched the city with the patience of a predator deciding whether the pen was worth the trouble. Oberyn stood on a high terrace near the pyramid's upper levels, the wind cool against his scorched face. Ser Barristan Selmy stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the dragon with wary reverence. Tyrion Lannister leaned on the parapet, cup replaced by a waterskin, his expression thoughtful in the way of men who saw opportunities as clearly as threats. Below in the streets, freed slaves gathered in clusters, pointing upward, murmuring prayers and stories already growing sharper with each telling. Unsullied formations held intersections, keeping order with silent presence rather than whips. Barristan's voice was low. It should not be there, he said, meaning the dragon, meaning Oberyn, meaning all of this. Oberyn's smile was faint. And yet, he replied, it is. Tyrion glanced sideways. You've changed the board, he said. Every player will adjust. Oberyn looked at him. You speak as if you are still a player. Tyrion's mouth twisted. I'm always a player, he said softly, even when I'm losing. A gust carried the smell of the burned camps, char, death, melted pitch. Oberyn breathed it in and felt no triumph, only the cold satisfaction of a door forced open. Barristan's gaze flicked to Oberyn's hands, wrapped now in clean cloth. "When she returns," Barristan said, "you may find she does not thank you." Oberyn's eyes stayed on the dragon. "I do not require thanks," he said. "I require that she listens." Tyrion's voice was quiet. "She listens to strength," he said, "and to truth, sometimes, when it hurts." Oberyn's grin sharpened. "Then I will give her both." They stood in uneasy silence until Tyrion stiffened slightly, head tilting as if he had heard something on the wind. A shadow passed across the terrace, fast, immense. Oberyn looked up. High on the horizon, beyond the river's dark ribbon, a shape circled against the pale sky. Black wings, a darker body, tail like a lash. Even at distance, it moved with a confidence that made Rhaegal's perched stillness seem cautious. Drogon. The air felt suddenly thinner. Rhaegal lifted its head, eyes narrowing, a low rumble vibrating through its chest. The city below stirred as people noticed the second shadow and began to shout again. Fear and hope tangled anew. Barristan's face went pale. "She is coming," he whispered, though he did not truly know. He only felt what the dragon in the sky meant. Oberyn's heartbeat quickened, not with fear but with something sharper. Anticipation edged with dread. Somewhere inside the pyramid, Tyene sand waited with the horn hidden like a sin. Somewhere out on the sea, Victarion Greyjoy would be rowing toward vengeance. Somewhere in the dark beyond the world's edge, Euron Greyjoy might be smiling at a thread pulled taut. And above Meereen, the black dragon circled like a blade finding its mark. Oberyn Nymeros Martell set his hands on the parapet and stared into the sky, because the next time fire fell, it might fall on him.